Good morning. Thanks for joining us on RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez.
And I'm Robert McNeely. You see that beautiful shot of Capitol Hill 1 week into Trump 47, the force that cannot stop, the return of the Jedi, in fact, a MAGA golden era, and President Trump and the Republican Congress really hitting the pavement to get the mission done.
Exactly. So looking forward to seeing the president a bit later today in Doral, Florida. He'll be there with the GOP Leadership Conference. We're also seeing reports that he will be signing executive orders today. So we'll see, will that happen there in Florida? There's no schedule yet on specifics, but hearing those reports as well. Speaking of reports, down in Texas, the Texas Tactical Border Protection Unit there is being deployed to work alongside the federal government as well. So we're seeing a lot of great things happen when it comes to the border and cleaning up our country. Always good to see that. Now, what we're watching here in a little bit, the Vice President, JD Vance, will be in Damascus, Virginia, just outside of Bristol. And, you know, sometimes you think about Asheville, North Carolina for that storm, Hurricane Helene, but it was also in Damascus, which is just about 100 miles to the north, got devastated.
It's incredible how this storm really cut through the southeast United States, and in Western Virginia and Western North Carolina, simply not used to hurricanes and hurricane force winds, tornadoes that followed. And we heard on Friday from these poor residents who were involved in all this that have makeshift shelter. In some cases were living in tents, telling President Trump and Reverend Franklin Graham that there were 25-foot not only the wind gusts, but water walls coming and literally hitting them after the hurricane, after the tornadoes. And speaking of that survivor's guilt, that many of their residents and neighbors, fellow neighbors, passing away as a result. Terribly, terribly sad.
And then on top of that, of course, President Trump traveling to the West Coast, and another tragic situation, not only with the loss of life, but the loss of so many homes and businesses there. So obviously that was Friday. Today is Monday. It is January 27th, 2025. You're looking live at the beautiful White House there. President Trump is not in Washington, D.C. right now. He's down in Florida, was in Florida for the weekend, and will hold a GOP leadership conference there. And I'm sure he'll be speaking. And of course, we'll see if he'll be signing some more executive orders there in Florida. Let's also talk about the vice president, as he said yesterday on X when he made the announcement that he's going to Damascus, quote, "We live in the greatest country in the world, and when disaster strikes, Americans ought to expect more out of their federal government." The vice president said, "Tomorrow I'll return to Damascus, Virginia to check on their cleanup from Hurricane Helene, and will continue to do so until they're fully recovered." And again, Damascus, just east of Bristol, 115 miles north of Asheville, North Carolina, where President Trump was, of course, on Friday. So a number of great sponsors to thank here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, including Colonial Metals Group. freegoldguy.com/RSBN. Robert, as you know, great to have a backup plan in gold.
Absolutely crucial. You can scan there to shield your savings now and get that free 2025 gold guide to look at the best options with truly no pressure as you're examining how you can turn your 401k or IRA into tangible gold, silver, and metals. These are the things that have stood the test of time, regardless of who's in power, what kind of government you live under, and to really have an asset that backs up your properties, your savings. And we can't rely on this thin paper money that is simply printed out of thin air, and the inflation that has greatly increased since the Biden administration.
So all you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN, or go ahead to that QR code you see there on your screen. Colonial Metals Group, a wonderful sponsor here at Right Side, but also a wonderful product as well. It is 11:44 Eastern Time as we await the Vice President, JD Vance, who will be touring Damascus, Virginia. Again, it's similar to what President Trump did on Friday in Asheville, North Carolina. Damascus is a very small town if you look on the map there, but again, it's to the east of Bristol, Tennessee/Virginia. We were just talking about how Bristol is in both Virginia and Tennessee, as many people know in that region, but maybe not around the whole country.
And a beautiful part of the country if you'd like to tour, take a road trip through there. And the beautiful, you can go to the Blue Ridge or to the Smoky Mountains. Really the entire region up Appalachia is just extraordinary. So if you want to take a summer tour or fall tour doing that, please do so. And I know that the residents there would appreciate the tourism dollars that do flood in during the holiday months.
Other news that we're following here at Right Side, President Trump has been invited by Speaker Johnson to address a joint session of Congress. That's on March 4th. That'll be quite interesting and quite great to see. It's not a State of the Union, but it's still invited by the Speaker of the Union. In a way, it's a State of the Union because,
right.
I mean, he's speaking in front of the nation. He's speaking in front of a joint session. So that'll be on March 4th. Of course, a lot of Senate confirmation hearings this week.
Oh, of course. And we still have to have the Kash Patel hearings for FBI Director Pam Bondi. We're waiting on that vote for Attorney General. But we have the DHS Secretary, Homeland Security, now Kristi Noem, in place. And President Trump's national security team really has assembled together. And we saw border czar Tom Homan. He is on film, actually with Dr. Phil, an overnight raid in Chicago, and they're questioning an illegal migrant who is charged with criminal sexual acts against minors and saying that he was never illegal, that he had nothing to do with this. And it was really fascinating that Homan showed the example of this is what's walking the streets of Chicago because of people like Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, who refused to enforce the law and reminded everyone again that if you harbor an illegal alien, according to Section 8 of U.S. Code 1324, that's at least 1 year in prison. It's a felony, and that includes elected officials. So Tom Homan really cleaning up the streets and making America safe again.
The number is well past 1,000 now arrests since President Trump has taken the oath of office there, the 47th Commander-in-Chief, as we know. I looked this morning on X at the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement X handle, and they show on there repeated pictures of people that have been arrested and what their crimes that they've had. The White House on X as well is reposting those. So we're seeing this immigration crackdown like none other. There's no other administration that has done what President Trump is already doing right now.
Absolutely, 110%. This has been a problem in the modern American presidency, but President Trump, again, running on illegal immigration. When the consultant said, "What are you talking about? Don't go after this in 2016. It's not a winning issue." And he said, no, I know what's happening here because, again, being a builder, being in business, seeing these issues and seeing the human trafficking cost of not only the sex trafficking, but work labor as well, and the violations with that. And the talking point of Republicans and Democrats in the Beltway for so long, this is going back to the Bush administration, simply saying that Americans don't want to do certain jobs like pick our crops. Well, let's test that out finally. Let's move people out of here who are of illegal status, committing crimes as well, and see who actually applies for certain jobs. You know, of course, we want everyone to have a better way of life, but is it humane to pay someone $4 an hour for backbreaking labor? I don't think so. And that we can also blame George W. Bush and his administration for such atrocities.
And shifting back over to the Senate confirmation hearings, as you know, Pete Hegseth is now the Department of Defense Secretary, sworn in, I believe over the weekend. But at the end of the day, a lot of the positions are being approved by the Senate. We haven't seen one that has been turned down. So we're going to be following that here on Right Side. As you see here, this is the Vice President's plane here, as he is going to be departing this plane and then getting that tour in Damascus, Virginia. You're looking live at 11:49 Eastern Time. We will follow the Vice President here as he speaks with a number of people, victims in that area, and also local officials. And that's the thing, the local officials there they're embracing the incoming president and the vice president. They say, thank you for showing up. This didn't happen under the last administration.
In both parties as well. We saw this with Governor Josh Stein alongside President Trump in North Carolina, because this is truly the Federalist States' Rights Administration, and President Trump and Vice President Vance running on this. How does the Bill of Rights affect your life, especially that 10th Amendment that everyone seems to forget about, that the states are the experiments of democracy, and let's put common sense on the table. We saw this, how he so brilliantly ran those roundtables with experts and political leaders in California and North Carolina on Friday. I'm sure Vice President Vance will do the same here in Virginia, and it'll be interesting to see if he's joined by Governor Youngkin, perhaps Lieutenant Governor Winston Sears, who is also running for governor right now and has the endorsement of Governor Youngkin.
Exactly. So you're looking live right now at the Vice President's plane, obviously flying in from Washington to Virginia there, southern Virginia, of course, all the way to the southwest of the state. That is, of course, the Vice President's seal on the inside of the plane as the door is open. So as soon as we see the Vice President stepping off the plane, we'll go there live and see if he addresses reporters at all, as he is met by local officials in the Commonwealth of Virginia. A beautiful state with some 9 million of our people that live in that great state there. So a great trip today by the Vice President, showing that not that he just got the job and he's going to stay in a cushy office, he's going to come out here and be with the people. And nothing wrong with staying in the office, because he's getting things done just like President Trump is.
And people asked, why did President Trump select somewhat of an outsider, an unknown, only 2 years a United States Senator? Well, it was his story, his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, where he grew up against all the odds. His mom struggling with addiction, and his mama, his grandmother, raising him. And that reconciliation story over the years, what really touched me during the Republican National Convention, when he received that nomination, his mother looks at him and says, "I love you, JD." And it was a really poignant moment that you can come from, in a sense, rags to riches. But this is also someone who will not enrich himself in the office. He's not someone who will go from $3 million of net worth to $16 million. I don't know how that works in 4 years when the salary is roughly, give or take, in the good six figures, but you're talking about $280,000 a year. I don't know how you reach $13 million more in 4 years like Kamala Harris did, but perhaps there'll be a congressional investigation over that. But this man truly has the energy. He was a Marine. He decided to go to the Marines to serve in Operation Iraqi Freedom and the war on terrorism before going to The Ohio State University and, of course, getting his JD, Mr. JD Vance, with that JD, and really an impossible story that only can happen here in America. And
originally from Middletown, Ohio, if you remember, we did live coverage at one of his rallies. It was just Vice President at the time, the nominee, and the place was packed. Everybody in OHIO over there in Ohio, of course, just enjoying the fact that he would stop at his old high school. It was great coverage some time ago, but you know, we're going to see him here again, the Vice President, JD Vance, while he visits the people of Virginia. It's 11:53 a.m. If you're just joining us right now, Robert McNeely along with Matthew Alvarez as we get ready to see the Vice President here. But Robert, as you know, later today, coverage from Doral in Florida, where President Trump will be with the GOP Leadership Conference.
Right, I'm sure going over everything that they're highlighting, and we'll go there now to the Vice President coming off of Air Force Two.
All right, so you see that coverage there live on Right Side Broadcasting Network. The vice president meeting with local officials on his way to the next stop in Damascus, Virginia. So our cameras will be following the motorcade there with the vice president on his way to tour this damage, similar to some of the coverage we had for you on Friday from Asheville and Los Angeles with the 47th Commander-in-Chief. The vice president visiting now in Virginia. So as soon as that live feed picks up, we will go to that right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Speaking of our country and various states around the union, shifting gears slightly right now as we wait for that next live feed here at the network. There's that Greater Idaho movement. The Greater Idaho movement, it's the eastern part of Oregon wanting to be part of Idaho. There's a whole movement happening there. And so I'm in touch with the person that runs Greater Idaho Movement. We're going to have him on the broadcast sometime this week just to talk to us about what the people really want in Oregon to get away from the ultra-liberal policies of Portland and want to be part of Idaho. It's quite an interesting story. Thought we'd bring that to you here at the network as we are approaching noon on Monday. Happy Monday to you, Robert.
Great to be with you, Matthew. It's a rainy day here in Auburn, Alabama, but always cheery in Dixieland as we are now 1 week into the new Trump administration. And I think the biggest difference is the fact that you have a president and vice president where the buck clearly stops with them. They are responsible for serving the American people. They are dismantling the deep state in that process. And we saw Vice President JD Vance with a CBS doing an interview from his office stating that I want to keep my children safe against illegal immigration. And you can go with the mainstream talking points, but we're getting the job done in real time.
Exactly right. And so we've seen a number of things happening along the border right now. Last week, we saw some video of the Marines down at the border. On top of that, just recently, as of about 9 this morning, the governor there, Greg Abbott, said he's going to deploy the Texas Tactical Border Force to work side by side with U.S. Border Patrol agents. So the federal government working in tandem with the state government there and also other officials. I mean, sheriffs across the country we've interviewed here at the network at the county level are saying, let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's get it all done. Let's clean up our country. That means more safety. That means law and order. That means a lot of great things for our nation.
President Trump has, figuratively speaking, uncuffed the police to do their jobs, whether that be the state or county officials and localities, simply to enforce the law. So it's great to see this partnership. It's great to see it streamlined and done on time and under budget. That's one of the highlights of President Trump's testimony and promises made, promises kept in order to deliver for the American people. This was number 1 and 2 on his promises: to secure the border, seal it, and to stop the migrant invasion, and in turn, stopping a fentanyl crisis that has killed hundreds of thousands of people. And it's so sad because if you talk to most Americans, especially those we interviewed at these rallies, almost everyone knows directly or knows of someone who is poisoned by these pills. And in many cases, you're talking high school and college students who are simply trying to study for a test and they thought they were taking Adderall or what have you. They weren't drug addicts. They weren't selling drugs. They simply were trying to focus in school, and a friend would try to help them. And then there was a counterfeit pill of some sort laced with the deadly fentanyl. And we've seen the videos, too, of even in San Diego, the police officer that even less than a thimble of this, if it gets airborne in your system, you have but seconds to react. And thank God for the issuing of Narcan. And most sheriff's departments do have that, but we have to keep advocating for those things, especially in small town America that has been purged with this deadly, deadly poison.
So that's what we're looking to do, see the streets cleaned up, especially when it comes to fentanyl, but all the other crime that happens out there. But that's only one part of this entire administration. Right. There's so many other things going on, including all of these executive orders, all those promises made, promises kept. Let's also go to one of our sponsors here at the network, Tax Network USA. You see that information there on your screen, 800-357-1415, all helping with taxes. Anything from back taxes to questions for the upcoming tax season. all you have to do is give them a call or go on that website, tnusa.com/RSBN. All right, it is high noon, 12 o'clock on Monday, January 27th. Quite the coverage over the past couple weeks here, Robert, as we've seen the president, from the pre-inauguration coverage to Inauguration Day, and then all of the executive orders. It's been historic speeds. We're just holding on right now.
Right. It's really something that was so different compared to the last administration. You have a schedule that is very nonstop, where President Trump is jam-packed every single day. Even yesterday, finally enjoying some golf, a great way for him to relax at his club at Doral outside of Miami, Florida, but then also having a lunch meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, already seeing the progress there at the Department of State. And we saw Secretary Rubio saying that we have been elected with a mandate to serve the American people, and it's peace through strength. In his ceremonial address to all those bureaucrats and workers at the department, he said, if you're uncomfortable with that, if you're uncomfortable with what the people wanted President Trump to do, then there's the door, because we will direct this to be something that advances peace and security, strength, all in the interest of the United States.
Exactly right. So that's what he's doing there in Florida, and staying in Florida today at the Trump National Doral to meet with the GOP leadership conference. So we're seeing those reports that he may be signing executive orders today as well. So will he do it right there at 5 o'clock later today? We'll have it here live on RSBN. So yeah, a lot of coverage happening. And of course, throughout the days, throughout the weeks, there's a lot of different developments that happen, whether it's at the White House, whether it's on the road today in Virginia with the vice president, whether it's the Senate confirmations that'll be happening this week, and in general, America First news that's happening, similar to things like the Greater Idaho movement. Again, the reason why you look at these kind of things is, who cares what the mainstream media is covering? You look at what's happening on the ground, boots on the ground, and there are our citizens in Eastern Oregon saying, "I wish, man, come on, let's do this. Let's put pressure on on the state government." So there are a number of ways to have it approved that something like that would happen. Will it happen? I don't know, but it's interesting to cover a story like that. So, yeah, a lot happening, and of course, again, on March 4th, the joint session of Congress, President Trump will be speaking there per invitation by the Speaker of the House. So that'll be March 4th. So I'll have that coverage here at the network as well. And let's talk about the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. This news broke, of course, on Friday while we were doing all that wall-to-wall coverage, if you remember, Los Angeles to Asheville. And then, of course, the rally in Nevada, which was quite awesome.
Oh, outstanding.
It was a great time there. But Pete Hegseth, the DOD Secretary, it's great to have someone like that in office.
Well, someone focused on putting meritocracy and combat readiness at the top of the agenda for the Pentagon. We've seen this with the Millies of the world, Secretary Lloyd Austin as well, who put this transgender woke DEI policy at the top of this. And we had recruitment videos of the Navy where you have people dressing up in drag, not only disrespectful to women, but how do you think China viewed that? How do you think Russia viewed that? And really all of our allies across the world who really depend upon our fighting force and our strength as a superpower. It was really a frightening time over the last 4 years to see all of that injected into our military, and really an experiment that was started by Barack Obama. There's a lot of intelligent thought actually dating back to the Clinton administration with the don't ask, don't tell. Even back then it was, okay, if you want to serve, you're ready and welcome to serve. Don't talk about sexual preference. And that's what Pete Hegseth was talking about in his confirmation hearings. It did not matter who was next to you, Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, bi, whatever it was, background, religious affiliation, or sexual preference, whatever it was, you were a United States citizen in the military defending the country together as a band of brothers. And that's what Hegseth is focused on as the Secretary of Defense. And really it's about time that we have this toxic masculinity injected back into our military.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So what we see here from the president as well over the past couple of days is latest Truth Social posts. And I want to parlay and get into the Nevada rally as well. He said, quote, "There is a bright light over the USA and indeed the entire world ever since the presidential election of 2024. The president also said in all caps, the USA has a lot of winning to do, with an exclamation point, and it said DJT. So, of course, President Trump on Truth at his last post about 13 hours ago. But Nevada coverage was great to see, first of all, the leader of the free world having a nice time with the people.
Right.
His speech was amazing. It was relaxed. It was funny, but it was still solid.
Right, and talking about the 100 hours in the Oval Office, having done much more than his predecessor in a short period of time, especially with these effective executive orders. And the difference about, you might think, oh, executive orders, and there's been so many with the last few presidencies. These address things where he has those presidential powers, or at least gets the ball rolling in certain situations, for example, the 14th Amendment. But they also rescinded the unconstitutional demands of the Biden administration. So this has been crucial to get it started. Operation on Aurora on the ground, Marines down at the southern border as well. He is using his authorities, and he told that to LA Mayor Karen Bass the other day. You have specific executive authority that you can establish and use, just as I do, to help the people here in Pacific Palisades. You have not done that, and the people really cheering in that room who were allowed in there, including actually some media as well, because it's been very clear that the local government in California has failed the people.
It was great to see the president sit there, similar to The Apprentice in a way, right in the center, his wife to the right, Rick Grinnell to his left, and all of those officials in Los Angeles. And he just had it out in the sense of, let's just talk about what the heck's going on down here and figure it out. And they did it on camera and live, so there's no question what President Trump is fighting for the people. And it was interesting. You hear the local mayor there saying all these things about permits and this and that. And President Trump, just like any of us, when he sat there and he's like, that's going to take too long. 7 days is a long time. You got to get stuff done now. People want to get back to their lives. You got to help them out. And anyway, so it was great to see the president talk about that. Also, shifting gears slightly as we await the Vice President JD Vance in Damascus, Virginia. President Trump also talking about football recently. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs, he says. What a great team, coach, quarterback, and virtually everything else, including those fantastic fans that voted for me, and it said MAGA in parentheses here, in record numbers. And he said, likewise, congratulations to the Buffalo Bills on a tremendous season. They will do a lot of winning long into the future. So I was hoping for the Bills to play the Commanders in the Super Bowl, more of a throwback to when it was the Redskins against the Bills back in the day. And that didn't happen, so it's the Eagles versus the Chiefs. So real quick, as we await the Vice President, Robert, your pick for the Super Bowl.
You know, I think it's going to be the Chiefs. This is a team who can do it 3 years in a row. They have all of the assets, the targets. I mean, an incredible quarterback, Mahomes. You don't know if he's going to run or throw, a true talent. If you look at his 7-year career, he's been to countless AFC championships and now 4 Super Bowls, if I'm counting that correctly. But he has been dominant in the playoffs. He knows how to win. Almost the second coming of Tom Brady. And look at who he has to throw to. It's Kelsey. You got Harrison Butker, an incredible kicker who's clutch right in those moments. Got to meet Harrison actually at a Young Catholic Professionals Conference back in April of last year. And a great man who stood up for his own principles. And what's so interesting about that team, whether or not you agree with the players, their wives, or significant others on specific issues, they really represent all of America. And I think they will take it to the Eagles come 2 weeks from now. How about yourself, sir?
I'll let you know in a second, but let's talk about Harrison real quick. You got to try and get him on the show sometime. It would be great to interview him.
It'll be wonderful to talk to him about his perspective on things, and really that speech that was somewhat so controversial, where he was honoring his wife for being such a great mother and being really the head of the household in that regard and raising the family as he's providing.
So my wife and I are from Pennsylvania. Go Eagles. So I'm a 49er fan from back in the day, Montana and Rice and those guys. But I'm going to root for the Eagles. I don't want the Chiefs to win. I want the Eagles to win. But nothing against Kansas City. Great food, great city. Go Eagles. So there you go. We'll see what happens in February for the Super Bowl. Again, talking about that, of course, President Trump referring to the congratulatory comment to the Chiefs from yesterday's win. All right, so we'll see what happens next year with the Commanders and other teams like the Bills. let's get back to it here. As we know on X, if you're just joining us right now, Robert McNeely alongside myself, Matthew Alvarez. On X, Vice President Vance said just last night, quote, "We live in the greatest country in the world. When disaster strikes, Americans ought to expect more out of their federal government." So he said that he'll be returning to Damascus, Virginia. It is boots on the ground now. We just saw him from Air Force Two depart to the Damascus area there in Virginia to tour damage from Hurricane Helene. And he'll continue to check on the cleanup until they're fully recovered. So helping the people out, seeing what they need, and that, at the end of the day, is common sense leadership, if you ask me.
I remember when he took that big walking stick when he was a senator in Ohio with East Palestine, Ohio, and just went through the water, and you saw those colors, those chemicals from the train derailment. And Secretary Pete Buttigieg, I believe, never even visited the town, and it took months and months for Joe Biden to finally get there as commander-in-chief when so many people were poisoned through the water system. A terrible situation. Again, how much the last administration put America behind. They put us in the rear view mirror, and very similar to what Barack Obama did when he was in office. There was a mission of a post-constitutional America, an America weakened. Now that's not the case. This is an America first domestic agenda that is highlighted by peace through strength, but also if there's problems here on the ground, you have the two leaders who are going to come and see you, figure out what the federal government can do to assist, or perhaps get out of the way if necessary so that the states can respond immediately.
Exactly, and it is the foreign policy of the president signed by an executive order to make sure it benefits the interests of the American people. When you were talking, Robert, I was thinking about Ukraine, the terrible situation there. I was thinking about the illegal immigrants in our country and how the prior administration would give them money or give them this or that and give Ukraine this or that, and not for us, right? So
Right.
We see that that's what's happening now for the country first, which is a good thing to happen. And I'm looking forward to seeing everything when it comes to the foreign policy take shape here for President Trump. So 12:12 Eastern Time, awaiting that live feed from Damascus, Virginia, to see the Vice President there. Thank you guys so much for streaming in, especially last week as well. There was a lot of coverage, as you guys know, everything from the actual inauguration on Monday, but things didn't just slow down. You know, in other administrations or prior administrations for other presidents, not President Trump, it was just a real slow roll into, okay, we won. Okay, it's cold out in D.C. We're not going to do much, you know?
Right.
Not President Trump. He did that historic speed and strength. And so we've been covering it here at the network, and we'll continue to cover the president from the White House and beyond, whether it's nationally or globally, and the same thing with the vice president, and also America First News that matters to us here in this country. Common sense stuff.
Oh, it really is. And of course, we have the March for Life on Friday, and also subsequent marches for life throughout the United States over the weekend, including San Francisco on Saturday. I just like to highlight, you could find it on my True Social, the president of IllinoisFamily.org and IFIAction.org. This is David E. Smith speaking to President Trump's pro-life action. So many were signed in case you did miss them. He scrapped Biden's pro-abortion website, signed an order saying human life begins at conception, pardoned, of course, the 23 pro-life Americans that we had mentioned here on the network, including Beverly Williams Betty, who was in 41 months solitary confinement away from her husband and child. A terrible situation. No trial, mind you, in that period of time. He defunded the International Planned Parenthood, enforced the Hyde Amendment, which Henry Hyde was my congressman when I was a young kid and helped inspire me to enter the political ring. The video address to the March for Life, of course, from the Oval Office before Vice President Vance spoke directly, along with Governor DeSantis and his wonderful family, to the marchers. On Friday, stopped the lawfare against pro-life Americans, endorsed the Born Alive bill to protect abortion survivors. We're waiting for that signature. Maybe we'll get that at Doral. And, of course, signed the Geneva Declaration saying there is no right to an abortion. That's something that the globalists have tried to push for a long time, including the revoking the Mexico City policy, something you've seen tossed back and forth between Republican and Democrat administrations, but the international Planned Parenthood trying to make that a human globalist right, which is just incredible to me because, of course, our documents are enshrined with life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, ordained by our Creator to really be able to do that as American citizens. And that's why we speak up here at Right Side Broadcasting to be the voice of the voiceless, especially those yet to be born.
100% right there. And also within the first 100 hours of his second administration, President Trump has taken hundreds of executive orders, as you know, to secure the border, deport criminal illegal immigrants, unleash American prosperity, lower costs, increase government transparency, and reinstitute the merit-based hiring in the federal government and on. So that list is growing big time. Definitely, we are anti the globalist movement, especially when it comes to depopulation. I mean, that's real specific, but it's exactly what is part of the agenda there. So, you think about Canada too. Is it the self-euthanization thing? I mean, it's just terrible stuff.
The euthanasia, it's awful to think about because, and that's the thing too, and we can discuss too further on this program about the reinstitution of the death penalty, because some in the pro-life movement will say, well, President Trump's doing that on the other end. Well, there's a balance to things because there are legal parameters for enforcing someone who has created the worst situation, has broken the law, has truly murdered people, and in some cases really cannot continue on into society. And that debate's an open gray area, but President Trump trying to protect the most innocent amongst us. And then there's a question of euthanasia as well, because some people say, why don't you just let someone go ahead and do that? But the question is, are they being coerced into it? Is it the state that's actually executing? And we saw this in the past, especially with socialist governments, to get rid of the weak. Let's push away those who are, burden on society. Who makes that definition? Ultimately, it's God, not for man to decide. So that's why we need to work so hard to the best of our ability to work for life protections from conception until natural death. And of course, things will arise, but that's what President Trump is focused on: common sense in every aspect and constitutional government.
Exactly. So we have our voice, we have our vote, and then of course, when we have someone like President Trump in office, we have common sense leadership for the greater good. Brightcore is a great company as well. So it's mybrightcore.com. You see that Kimchi One product on the left side of your screen? This is something I got to start taking too, because gut health is always good, immune support, why not? Kimchi is this wonderful product with, it's a probiotic, of course. It's going to help your whole system out. You can learn a lot more information at mybrightcore.com/RSBN. If you buy 2 of them, you get 1 free. And it's all a part of making America healthy again.
Right, and this is so important to start your day off with a great product made in America. Of course, we're running the buy 2, get 1 free if you visit mybrightcore.com/RSBN. But really, it all starts in the gut, and it will affect your outlook on the day, how you perform at work, and how you relate to family and friends ultimately. Call 888-722-0936. Brightcore producing Kimchi One. So important to making America healthy again, and something I'm sure that our future Health and Human Services Secretary endorses as well.
Speaking of RFK Jr., looking forward to seeing the Senate confirmation for him this week. Also, Tulsi Gabbard and also Kash Patel. Big news this week. This is going to be quite the news cycle once again, and I think the news cycle will continue that way forever. I mean, there's so many news stories nationally, internationally, locally that affects people, and so it's not going to stop until the end of time. So,
especially the first 100 days of a new administration.
Exactly. And speaking of those 100 days. Usually, as we said last week, it's the 100 days of the administration, but President Trump already talking about the 100 hours that he's done. So many great things for this country as we await the live feed for the Vice President, of course, JD Vance in Virginia and Damascus. Have you ever been to Bristol, Tennessee, or Virginia, right outside of Damascus?
I have been through there, and again, a beautiful area. It's very just great for hiking, and great people, really relatable, and they're always curious about where your neck of the woods is. But it really is arguably one of the most beautiful areas in the entire country. So please make a trip out there and spend your dollars in those areas. I'm sure that will help with this recovery from Hurricane Helene, especially in the summer and fall months, as these are heavy tourist areas.
Exactly, and especially for those of you NASCAR fans out there, the Bristol Motor Speedway, the huge Coliseum, 100,000+ seats in that place. I've seen the Food City, I think it was a 500 there during the day, but at night, I think in August, they have a night race there, which is so cool. Right. And then also outside of NASCAR, back in the day, if you guys remember, the Tennessee Volunteers and the Virginia Tech Hokies played a football game at the Coliseum inside that huge NASCAR track. So Bristol, just a very cool area, the Tri-Cities area of our country. So that's where Vice President JD Vance will be, just outside of Bristol, so to the east, in a small town called Damascus, where they were just devastated by that hurricane. And here's the thing, I wonder if, so say President Trump and Vice President Vance were in office when this happened, right? The response to the Hurricane Helene would have been so much faster.
Oh, absolutely.
So many great things would have happened for the people there. They might not be in the same position they are in now because of Biden and Harris.
There was truly a focus on Ukraine and not on domestic policy. That was very clear. And regardless of political ideology, I think it became very obvious as it was winding down in the waning months of the Biden administration. And I think in turn really harmed the Kamala Harris's campaign, because it was inexcusable to keep sending billions to a war-torn area that we do know that people were receiving kickbacks even in our Congress. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, there's reports on this. And it's scary to see how people would take more interest or put a Ukrainian flag on their lapel rather than the American flag. And we saw FEMA's response. It was absolutely deplorable. If you want to define something as deplorable, that was deplorable.
Especially the fact that there were some FEMA workers that would bypass houses in North Carolina that had Trump signs outside. So not saying that everybody at FEMA does that, but that did happen, and we've seen the response. So President Trump, not a big fan of FEMA. He's the one that said it in LA just the other day. So we'll see what happens there with that agency, but we were just trying to get our country healed. You know, I was thinking about, I know we're going at historic speed right now, but man, just the emotion and just the mind, you know, of what we just dealt with for the past 4 years and what we saw President Trump go through. There's still a healing process, man. That is a tough time that we just went through, but we have God and we have grit here in this nation, and that's going to get us through.
And I was very happy to hear that apparently on that limo ride over to the Capitol from the White House, former President Biden and President Trump speaking on how we can unify the country. But we also do know, too, it's simple fact that there was a cognitive decline happening to President Biden. And Speaker Johnson spoke to this when he first went to meet President Biden when he became Speaker. It took weeks and weeks to get that meeting. He ends up at the Oval Office, and he said he's surrounded by Mayorkas is there, Lloyd Austin, the Vice President. It's basically an ambush. Finally, Biden asked them all to leave so he could have one-on-one time with Johnson. He said they were all very nervous, his senior staff and other advisors. They oblige, and they proceed into a conversation about the liquid nitrogen that was basically derailed because of the Biden administration. He said, Mike, I didn't do that. He goes, no, you, Mr. President, you did. He goes, what are you talking about? He had no recollection of it and also thought he did something else to preserve natural gas and liquid nitrogen in America. He said, sir, I can go right out to your secretary. We'll pull that right now. And he's like, you did that. And even Speaker Johnson saying that something was not connecting there mentally, and that really it's nice to know now who's truly in control. And I think we'll still have questions and perhaps more investigations into who was really running the White House during the Biden years.
Exactly. That will be interesting to find out, and so will the declassification of the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. So any news that we get here at the network, we'll gladly pass it on to you. We do subscribe and are part of the White House Office of Communications. So we do get those emails directly here at the network. So when we see various talking points, we'll see what it says, we'll report as needed. And of course, the public schedule of the president, always good to see what he's up to. He'll be, of course, not in D.C. today. He is in Florida for the GOP Leadership Conference. We'll see besides some executive orders. Let's talk about some of those executive orders. I mean, there's so many of them. My favorite so far is the fact that it was a national emergency that he declared on the southern border, which in turn also signed the executive order about the border wall being reconstructed, or at least construction to start again.
Right. I think those are crucial to the security of the country, and then in turn will also help the economy. But so many people have suffered due to illegal immigration. And of course, that's why the Laken Riley Act was passed just last week, and President Trump will sign that into law, his first bill that he will proudly sign in honor of really a beautiful young woman whose life was cut short because our federal government decided not to enforce the laws. And that's really the mission that was behind all of the signing of these executive orders and these pardons. People were so mistreated in the last 4 years that President Trump is setting the record straight and getting it right in order for people to flourish here in our country.
Exactly. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing what was the Agenda 47. It's still all part of the 20 core promises, which is now the executive orders being signed and then actions being taken, all in a beautiful, streamlined event. And that is what, when you have a good natural leader in office, that's what happens, doesn't it?
It does, 110%. President Trump, coming down from that golden escalator a decade ago with our beautiful First Lady Melania Trump on a mission to make America great again. And it's driven by common sense. He's clearly shown in the last week he's willing to work with anyone in order to get the job done. And the relationship I'm most fascinated by will be him and Senator John Fetterman, as Senator Fetterman of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania voting for Pete Hegseth, saying to his party, no, I think Pete is the right guy for the job. And in his classic hoodie and shorts, as he usually attends most things, wearing that, including the inauguration, a simple approach, but profound in the sense that him and President Trump met at Mar-a-Lago before the inauguration, and they did not realize how much they have in common. And actually, the wives as well getting along, very much enjoying some tea while the gentlemen were meeting. So that will be a very interesting relationship to see how common sense and populist drive to serve the American people will overcome party differences. And
that's what we're seeing. And, people are starting to have a liking to the senator out of Pennsylvania. And rightly so. I mean, when he says, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, let's be real, right? If you're saying truth, it's still truth. Doesn't matter what side it's coming from. I know that's a very simple thought, but at the end of the day, it's common sense America, so we don't need to talk over somebody's head about it. I mean, if someone's for health or for safety or for freedom, and for the American people, which we see President Trump started when he was campaigning back in 2015, so 10 years ago, till now and for the next 4 years. I mean, that's a lot of years that President Trump has been the leader of the free world.
Well, and look at Tulsi Gabbard 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. She's a 2020 nominee for, or candidate for president of the United States as a Democrat. She took Kamala Harris to task on those drug busts that she put people away for low-level crimes, having or possessing marijuana, using marijuana, and then bragged about on the show, Charlemagne the God, his podcast, that she likes to enjoy marijuana from time to time. So really a double standard. She pointed out, Tulsi Gabbard, and then was investigated by the Clintons, had hackings take place on her own personal server and cell phone as well. She was being tracked by the government. She became public enemy number one, ultimately leaving the Democrat Party and then joining the Republican Party in the process. So quite a transformation for Tulsi Gabbard in the last few years, and President Trump picking her to be Director of National Intelligence, which will be just extraordinary to have another person who cares most about our intelligence officers and our military who sacrifice so much to keep us safe.
And that Senate confirmation hearing is this week for Tulsi Gabbard for DNI, also Kash Patel, and also RFK Jr. So I believe Ms. Loeffler as well for the Small Business Association. So a lot of news to be had this week as we are on Monday, of course, January 27th, the bottom of the hour. Robert McNeely, Matthew Alvarez, live right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Looking forward to going to Virginia with you. We'll watch it right here with you as the Vice President JD Vance will tour damage in Damascus, Virginia. Again, right outside of Bristol and about 115 miles north of Asheville, where President Trump was on Friday. So we'll have all of that here for you here at the network, as we are obviously talking a lot about the executive orders that President Trump has signed. And again, historic speed. Did you see the video of our U.S. Marines down on the southern border?
It's really exciting to see that. And President Trump signing that the Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and all the cartels are foreign terrorist organizations. So the military has the right to engage them and take them down once and for all, especially on our border. So taking the fight to them is the right thing to do. And the first evening on Inauguration Day last week, the reporter asked, will you allow military to move into Mexico to get these cartels? And he said, if necessary, I'll do what we have to do. And it's a war on the southern border. And the cartels, good night, go get another job, because your days of terror are over with this administration. A very exciting thing to see.
If you go onto the White House X account page, right, it says here about 19 hours ago, as Commander-in-Chief, this according to the President, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. We'll do it at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Promises made, promises kept. They show, arrest after arrest from ICE in Seattle, Los Angeles. Let's see if there's other cities here. Buffalo, all over the place. Phoenix, Boston, Atlanta, New Orleans, Seattle once again, LA here, LA again, Seattle. All these cities around the country, we're seeing this happen. ICE arrests are happening. And as the border czar Tom Homan told our RSBN host Christina Loren during inauguration coverage, that the ICE officers are getting uncuffed and they're going to go out there across the nation and take care of business. Speaking of business, let's go to angelpaste.com. Angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. A great product there on the right side of your screen. Valentine's Day slowly getting closer. So, great product. Angelpaste.com, 10% off. I love our RSBN promo codes. There's always a nice discount.
And they're easy to remember because so many times it's simply RSBN. Or the number that you get, whether it's 10, 20, 30, perhaps even half off. But let me tell you, angelpaste.com, they're out of Spring, Texas, and there's a lot of mosquitoes down there. So one of their lotions actually naturally repels mosquitoes. This is non-GMO, no chemicals going onto your skin. Sometimes you have to wonder about that with those big corporate entities, but I get the dry hands in the winter as well, and there's a Manly Men product in a nice black bottle, very discreet, so you could get that for your men as well, ladies, if you're just thinking it's a product for you, with Valentine's Day around the corner, as you mentioned, Matthew, a great product for both sexes, both genders. And we do know there's only two genders. President Trump signing that memorandum as well, because again, common sense and science. They are a Christian-based company. They hire veterans. This is one of our finest sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting. Angelpaste.com. Go check out all of the wonderful options that they have that will just make your skin feel glowing and exceptional.
And that's angelpaste.com, RSBN for that 10% off. 12:33 Eastern Time as we await the Vice President, JD Vance, in Virginia, touring the Damascus area there of the Hurricane Helene situation of the aftermath, of course. You're looking live there at the White House on this Monday, the 27th of January. And this week, again, you can join us live for Senate confirmation hearings, also America First stories, and everything in real time. Right. If the president decides to have an executive order press access where he's signing EOs in the Oval Office, like we've covered twice already, we'll have that. And of course, today, the president will bring you this live from Doral, Florida. So the GOP Leadership Conference. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit and to see the amount of people that are on Team Trump now in the sense of supportive fully of MAGA and the MAGA agenda, which is a simple agenda. It's to make our country create again. So your thoughts just about the GOP leadership conference?
I think it's extraordinary, and I think this is one of the best leadership teams perhaps since Speaker Gingrich when he came into House leadership and becoming the Speaker in 1995. You have, of course, Mike Johnson, who did not want the role, but instead really was called to it by his colleagues and by the hand of Almighty God. There's no question. He went to his knees in the well of the House after he became Speaker with several other members, just asking for that divine providence. You have Steve Scalise, who's an extraordinary majority leader, and that personal testimony of having received an assassin's bullet as President Trump was on the other side of a bullet as well, which is just horrifying to think about. But if it wasn't for then Senator Jeff Flake and Senator Rand Paul, who administered immediate CPR and a tourniquet around the wound, Steve Scalise would not be here. And so he's an exceptional man, an exceptional leader, highly respected on both sides of the aisle. You have the whip, of course, Tom Emmer from Minnesota. And I can tell you from being in the rooms where it happens, I was at a MAVPAC conference, and I love the organization, but Tom Emmer spoke publicly about how he wasn't sure if it was going to go truly in a MAGA direction. This is the summer of 2023. He was very open to other candidates, of course, supportive of the agenda, but almost looking elsewhere. And it was an interesting comment that he did have, almost seeming like, where was the Republican conference going to go post Donald Trump? Well, he's fully on board as well. And it's great to see a unified Republican approach to making America great again, whether it's in the House, in the Senate, and of course at the executive level. So this is really a great team that has been forged together through the strong-willed nature of President Trump's approach to governance, and so much that we can work on together as a nation in order to fully prosper once again.
And we have so many names that we think of here at the network when it comes to the true people that really are supporting our country and representing our country. Everybody from President Trump to the Vice President, and to Eli Crane out of Arizona, and Andy Biggs out of Arizona, and MTG out of Georgia, and on and on and on. Byron Donalds, of course, out of Florida. So we're seeing great things happen. We could also talk about Senator Cruz. I mean, there's a lot of people that are on the team, and hopefully recruiting more to say, you know what, this is the way it is. This is what the people want. So you're going to get primaried or voted out if you don't go by it. So
right,
that's pretty much what's going on.
Exactly, Matthew. And I think that we saw that with the Pete Hegseth vote. I think that, and people have tried in the past, but Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, it's all time for a primary, and they've been there too long. They're too entrenched in the D.C. swamp, and again, it doesn't really matter if it's an R or a D next to their name. It's do you care about the future of this country and we the people, or a deep state bureaucratic agenda? And it's sad to see that McConnell is still the chair of the Rules Committee for the Republicans. He's by far in the minority of where the caucus is at, and he doesn't want reformers in these government offices. He does not want people like Pete Hegseth to do the job that the Secretary of Defense is meant to do. So I'm calling it right here, right now. Let's get primaries in Kentucky, Alaska, and Maine, and really put MAGA people into those slots who are really fighting for the American people.
And that statement there by Robert McNeely at 12:38 Eastern Time. So in case you want to record it later, it's at 12:38 when you said it. All right, so we're looking forward to the Vice President in Virginia. The JD Vance, of course, touring the area there in just a little bit. Before we go to that, and again, as soon as we get that live feed, we'll go right there to Virginia. Also, Colonial Metals Group, a great sponsor here at the network. I interviewed Paul Stone, who is the founder of Colonial Metals Group. And all you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Get some information on tax-sheltered IRAs, 401ks. If you have no idea about this space, it's as simple as a phone call or just going to freegoldguide.com.
And no obligation here. It's just great to see what you can do with your 401k or IRA to transfer it into, Beauty and the Beast is a tale as old as time. Gold, silver, and metal are pieces of commerce that really have stood the test of time, quite frankly, no matter the government, no matter the leader. And in our constitutional republic, we should have the right to this kind of currency in order to safeguard and safe harbor everything you've worked so hard for, especially as you're leaning towards retirement. So whether it's property or assets, savings, go to Colonial Metals Group and learn how to really make sure that you and your family are protected in such questionable and uncertain financial times.
Exactly. All right, freegoldguide.com. You are watching RSBN Live. Beautiful look at the White House. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Welcome back. It's almost 12:45 on the East Coast. Robert McNeely alongside myself, Matthew Alvarez, here on RSBN Live as we get that feed to Virginia, Damascus, Virginia, where the Vice President JD Vance will be touring Hurricane Helene aftermath. Even this after months of that storm there, the prior administration just didn't do the good job.
And we just saw that brilliant headshot that I love their headshots because it says, we are going to get the mandate done for the American people. If you don't want any part of this, there's the door. And I have to say, my sister-in-law, she's quite a Republican herself, but she said, oh my goodness, those blue eyes of J.D. Vance, how can you not want to support such a wonderful young man for office?
Exactly. And he's 39, is that right?
40 years old.
40 years
so the
old.
first millennial vice president. So the third youngest vice president in history behind John C. Breckinridge and, of course, Richard Milhous Nixon, where he was President Eisenhower's running mate way back in the 50s.
And as you see some photos there from Damascus, that might be a live picture right now as we will see the vice president. Say it again, producer? Okay, that's a photo we're hearing from some of the damage after Hurricane Helene. But we were just talking about generations. You were saying millennial. Well, let's talk about Gen Z real quick. And the only reason why I'm going to bring this up is because it just shows how the mainstream media or mainstream sites have, they're just trying to pour the false narrative and ridiculous stories. These are stories that we are not going to cover at the network when it comes to this one. Watch this. We're only bringing it up just to show you, hey, you're not missing anything over there. Gen Z, it says Gen Z ready to embrace dictatorship after losing trust in democracy. This is on the Drudge Report right now. And so let's see, I clicked on the link. Let's see where it actually goes. But I could say that's what they're talking about over there. And it's just something that is ridiculous. Embracing a dictatorship after the fall of democracy, what?
And nothing could be further from the truth. There's actually a great organization out there, Matthew, Run Gen Z, and I hope I'm free to speak on it because a good friend of mine, State Rep Joe Mitchell out of Iowa, formed this organization, and they work a lot with Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action to actually recruit Gen Zers to run for city council, school boards, even perhaps state legislature, because they may be of age. A lot of states, you could be 18, 21, you could be a rather young age in order to pursue public office. And actually, a majority of our founders were rather young. A lot of us think that, they were such older men because so many lived long, healthy lives way past the life expectancy of the 18th century. But many of them, as teenagers or even in their early to mid 20s, when they signed those immortal words down on that parchment and signed their pen to paper, which really was, when you think about it, it was a death sentence. If we had lost that war, they would have been humiliated, drawn and quartered, perhaps hanged in the public square in order to intimidate the fellow colonialists. So, I mean, really think about this. It's scary to think how it could have gone the other direction.
Exactly. Well, fast forward to just this past November, 2024, what the fork in the road of our country could have gone under Harris. So we're so happy that it went the right way, and we're going to cover it here at the network, those core promises. And Robert, we know as part of being a journalist and being in the media, we still have to look at what's happening in the sense of common sense and truth, report on that. If there's anything that's going away from common sense and truth, that we don't follow that. And we're not supposed to follow and report that as fact.
Right.
There has to be context, and that's what we're going to have here at the network. But we know on the left side of the aisle, when it comes to mainstream media, they just like to go that false narrative side to dupe the American people. But that's old news now, and fake news. That's in the past. For those of you that are now watching alternative, independent broadcasts and also journalism, we're using all of our experience here at the network, and RSBN's Christina Loren, who's also worked in mainstream media, and people from behind the scenes here at the network, to cover really America first, to cover making America great again, those 20 core promises from the president, and to cover events like what you're about to see, where Vice President JD Vance is going to be in Virginia, and then later today, the 47th Commander-in-Chief in Doral with the GOP Leadership Conference. So it's great to be a part of just us together in a way. Those of you watching, we the people, and we really are looking forward to bringing you all this coverage, especially those Senate hearings later in the week.
And that's why it's so important to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you to all those who are out there. But a programming note here at Right Side Broadcasting, we really are now your go-to live desk of everything Trump 47 and the current political climate. We will cover with our access everything happening, as Matthew said, crucial votes. You can actually go to the floor and watch it in real time, where other networks just will not take the time to do that. They won't analyze it. They won't even necessarily talk about what's happening, just like Vice President JD Vance going to visit the victims of Hurricane Helene and how to help Virginia at this time. So this is what's going to set us apart post extensive rally coverage. And now we're seeing there's been 2 rallies this year, one before the inauguration and then one over this weekend as well. So it seems President Trump will continue with that tradition. But on Saturday, I thought as well, a little bit shorter than the campaign season, given that he has a tighter schedule in a sense, but also it doesn't stop him from rallying off, boom, 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 I got this done this week, and then taking a little time to go to the craps table and encourage those enjoying Vegas.
That was awesome. I mean, just imagine being in Vegas and seeing the most famous person on earth and the leader of the free world walking through. A great time there in Vegas. It was awesome to have you guys join the network here and watch with us. And, I was just thinking about this coverage here for the vice president. And you think about it this way, you look on some networks out there, and then we can get off that talking about other networks because we're moving forward as a network here. But the point is, this will be not a priority story today. This will be one of those, maybe in a small box in the bottom of the screen at, JD Vance tours this, area. And then they have what they think is the story of the day. Let's be straight up. A lot of the networks in the morning, they decide what are the stories of the day. A lot of them are agenda-leaning, false narrative-leaning, not pro-America, pro-Constitution, pro-God. They just aren't because I've seen it happen. So here at the network, we're going to cover actually what's happening. We're not trying to have any kind of agenda other than to share with you common sense and truth, and also live pictures from all across this country. So here we are. And thanks for joining us again on Friday. That was quite the coverage, though. The Los Angeles coverage, the Asheville, North Carolina, and then to Nevada over the weekend. So you could, follow us here at the network, at RSBN on Truth Social, at RSB Network on X as well. So
yeah, it's a great way to like, share, and subscribe. Really, whatever is your favorite subscription and also social media app. But we have some favorites here as well. But it's all about getting the truth out there and to share with the American people all of this unbridled access to those who represent you. And we can see that viewing box is still up there on Pennsylvania Avenue. I wonder when that ultimately does come down, but a new dawn and a new day, the sun shining across the shining city on a hill, as President Reagan put it. It's a biblical context that is so true for the city of Washington. If you put God-fearing people in place, we have seen that door swung wide open again for religious freedom and the Constitution. So it's an exciting time for our country.
So the Commander-in-Chief in Florida, who will be holding a conference there with the GOP Leadership Conference a bit later today. You can watch all of our live streams wherever you're watching, Rumble and others, to see exactly what time we'll be starting that coverage. I believe it will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, but you got to check, of course. And then the Vice President, not in D.C., he's in Virginia right now. We'll go to that live picture as soon as we get it. Now, we did see him departing or deplaning from Air Force Two, and it was great to see him there, just right down the steps and meeting local officials.
Right, he is someone who really hits the pavement, did so well as a senator. He would go right into an area that needed assistance, and I think this was very vivid during the East Palestine the chemical spillage from the trains, the derailment that happened. And who was nowhere to be found was Secretary Pete Buttigieg when he was on paternal leave. And this is someone who really failed at that job. It was a DEI hire. He did not have the expertise to run that office. And I think Sean Duffy will be an extraordinary Secretary of Transportation, having a background in the things that make everything run on time, whether it's planes, trains, and automobiles. Getting this country back on track. And it also works closely with our energy department and the liquid gold under our feet. Drill, baby, drill. All executive orders that President Trump has put into place to make our country prosperous and energy independent again. Because when you seal that border, when you drill for oil, and when you deregulate, you unleash the prowess and the economic machine that is the United States, and there's no stopping it.
That's exactly right, and it's awesome to see when President Trump and at the time for East Palestine, Ohio, President Trump obviously wasn't president at that moment, but he went and visited the people of East Palestine, and JD Vance was right there with him. And I actually traveled to East Palestine, Ohio, back and when that all happened, and got a chance to interview JD Vance, who we didn't know at that point would be the vice president. So I'm looking for it here on my Truth Social. And what we'll do is, if we have enough time, we'll be able to air this and show you just even then and President Trump, he stopped at a McDonald's after the event. Right. It was a big deal there. But still, he was there with the mayor of East Palestine. And the producers are talking to us? Okay, so it looks like we do have a vantage point in Virginia. They're getting ready to set up everything when it comes to the vice president. So we'll be going to that here shortly. But back to East Palestine. If you guys are watching from Ohio at all, President Trump obviously won Ohio and all of its electoral votes there. It used to be that bellwether state, but still a huge, powerful win for the Buckeye State.
Oh, gigantic win. And I can remember the great Charlie Kirk at Turning Point saying that if he was the head of the RNC, he would have taken it out of D.C. and put it in Ohio and Florida. But at the time, remember, they were huge swing states. Now they're Republican stalwarts because of the great policies put into place by leadership there. And because of COVID, people having moved to both. Even Ohio has an extremely attractive a commercial. It actually shows a young woman, a young man who meet at a barbecue, and hey, I've been in Ohio for a few years. Oh, I came here for a tech job. Well, they end up falling in love and having children and saying Ohio's the place where all your dreams can come true. I think it's really clever because they have strong Republican leadership there.
Exactly. So Ohio, a win for the Trump presidency, of course, and it was obviously a great time, great coverage here at the network on November 5th with Christina Loren, Robert, and myself. As you guys saw, I mean, we were there with you. And I remember saying after you won Pennsylvania, I said at the end, thank God, thank God, thank you, Jesus. And, you know, it was just what I felt like saying at that time. But it's true, you know. It was a powerful time, and when you talked about Georgia, it was something that I will remember forever, and I know you will too.
Oh, no question. We were the first ones to call it here, too. I mean, we worked in conjunction with AP News, who does an extraordinary job. At the same time, RSBN called Georgia, Pennsylvania, and the election, all before some very, very major corporate outlets, and we're proud of that here because we assessed it, saw it in real time, did the math, and RSBN was first to making that call, because it's not about necessarily being first, but also being correct and bringing you everything in real time as we see it and as we analyze it. And that's what we'll do here at the network moving forward as well.
Exactly. And speaking of live events as well, you see the Suburban there where the Vice President JD Vance and security detail is in Damascus, Virginia. Again, 115 miles north of Asheville, where President Trump was on Friday, and to the east of Bristol, both Tennessee and, of course, on the border there, Virginia. So that's where Damascus is. So as soon as we get a little bit more seeing of, I guess that's Governor Glenn Youngkin speaking with JD Vance. Why don't we go there live right now?
across, stay here. Hey Parker, can you give us the green light when we can go in?
We're right here on you.
Thank you.
Just move from behind.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure. Hi.
All right, so we're looking at live coverage there in Damascus, Virginia. It's the top of the hour. Robert McNeely, I'm Matthew Alvarez. Guys, thank you so much for streaming in. As soon as they get their camera set there to the next position, then they'll show the Vice President talking most likely with some of the victims, and also if he's going to share anything with the press that's there. So it's one of those things when you're live wall to wall, the camera will pick up live and kind of move over, and it's just following what's going on there. So we'll hear from the Vice President. Hopefully there'll be an announcement of what kind of aid will be shared with the people of Virginia. Before we move on, let's go to Tax Network USA.
A great organization, tnusa.com/RSBN. Why don't you give a call to 800-357-1415. A great way to protect yourself from the IRS with all of those back taxes. April 15th is right around the corner. Of course, President Ronald Reagan always said that it was the 4th of July for Republicans every day in America. For the Democrats, it's April 15th, tax day, and it's a looming thing that we have to deal with, sadly. So go to tnusa.com/RSBN. Tax Network USA, these are professionals, whether it's state taxes, federal taxes, property values, and assessments. They are patriots just like we are here at the network, and you, the viewers, are as well. So you don't have to worry about any backlash, and you can look at your options as we look towards that April 15th date.
All right, so tnusa.com/RSBN. All right, so obviously live in Auburn, Alabama at 1:02 Eastern Time. We'll be going right back there to Damascus, Virginia a little bit later today as well. We'll have another live stream on Rumble and everywhere that you can watch Right Side Broadcasting Network, and we will be live in Doral, Florida for President Trump's meeting with the GOP Leadership Conference. We're seeing reports all over the place, social media and elsewhere, that he's going to sign some more executive orders today. So maybe he'll do it down there in Florida.
Will be very exciting to see, along with Republican leadership down at a beautiful club that actually is public as well. So if you are a golf fan, go and enjoy Doral, and you never know, you might just get to see your favorite president at his own course.
Always cool to see that. So I saw some social media as well of people that were, of course you have to go through all the security and all that, but he was driving by in a golf cart, waving to the people, and everybody just loving it. So it's cool that he is a people's president. He is the people's president, and a guy that's all about common sense. So again, we'll report on all of the promises made, promises kept in this administration, but also, if there's anything else that happens, we'll have it right here at the network, as we love common sense here at the network and truth and what's happening. So we'll be sticking to that as our main focus. And then it's also great to have someone like President Trump and also the Vice President, who you're about to see any second from now there in Damascus, Virginia. So why don't we get ready to go there live as soon as that camera position is steady. We'll go there live, and we'll see if he's going to interact. It looks like he's going to interact with a number of people there. And it's always good. I always like hearing the back and forth of we the people talking with people that are representatives like the Vice President.
Well, and I'm very interested to hear as well from Governor Glenn Youngkin and what he has to say about the damage on the ground and his differences that he may have seen having had to work with the Biden administration and now the Trump administration.
So we'll see that here any minute from now, as it's 1 o'clock on the East Coast, 10 a.m. out there on the West Coast. Thanks so much for waking up with us earlier today. And so we'll go to the Vice President here. Let's go there right now to Damascus, Virginia.
The one governor that makes me feel like a short guy. Damascus Police Department, right here. Good to see it here. Come on my left side. Two on this side. Damascus Fire Department.
Wonderful. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah, were you ready? I'll be right behind you.
Absolutely.
Governor, I'm so sorry. I'm going to scoot right behind you. Center.
All right, you're looking live there at the governor, of course, of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, getting ready to speak with the Vice President, JD Vance, as we hear, similar to what happened the other day, a briefing on how things are in Damascus, Virginia. And what I like about this is what you call hyper-local, right? Hyper-local reporting. You see that map there. You see the area that was devastated by that hurricane. So we're going to really get into the nitty-gritty in Virginia right now as we get ready to see the Vice President as soon as the lovely camera person steps out of the way. But looking forward to hearing from both the Vice President and the Governor.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what's on Glenn Youngkin's mind, given the difference of how he worked with the Biden administration and now to the Trump administration. I'd love to see his take on things because he's, again, a gentleman who's very similar, I think, to President Trump, having that business background, that common sense background. You know, when he ran for governor, he announced he checked with his wife first, and she said, you know, honey, I think you're a little bit out of your mind here. But they were on a morning walk. And he just said, I want to serve my state. It's not going the right direction. I think I have the tools to make a difference. And she said, okay, well, I'm in it if you are. And look what's happened. It's these people that President Trump has inspired to run for office, given their outsider status and background. And he's been perhaps one of the most impressive governors in all of America. And Vice President JD Vance jokingly saying, he's the only governor in the United States who makes me feel like I'm short.
Yeah, he was just joking about that briefly a second ago. And then on top of that, you've seen Governor Glenn Youngkin live at various President Trump rallies on the campaign trail. So we know a good friendship there, and it's always good to have solid friendships with governors across the states. Obviously, that's not the case in every one of them, but we're seeing the governor right now, Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, getting ready to start this press conference, but also this briefing on Hurricane Helene aftermath. And there is the Vice President. Let's go there live to Damascus, Virginia.
Yeah.
So this is the 27th of September.
Okay.
We're in this building.
Right here. Okay.
So across the street, and of course the places we went to, we walked down, we saw all through here.
Yeah.
We saw sinkholes, and then the bridge next here is the bridge that's got all the debris.
I see.
This is what everybody woke up to. This was the 27th of September.
And so in normal times, the river just runs sort of along this road here.
Yeah, you can fish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on this one, Mr. Vice President. Now the water has started to recede.
Yeah.
This is where we are right here.
Okay.
Water starting to recede, which is just good.
Sure.
And it's one of the issues that we're dealing with because I'm sure these are saying it's a mudslide, not a flood.
You're kidding me.
Exactly. Thanks for working with us.
Wow.
So there's a reason there's so much water. It's because there's a lot of water.
There's a lot of water. Yeah, that's right. So do you know when this photo was taken? Was this also the 27th? Or?
This was how many days afterwards? Do you know?
That's same day.
Same day. And then,
That's the evening.
Yeah, it was the evening.
Water has receded. This is what we got.
Okay. And then what? Do you remember when was I here? It was 3 or 4 days after, maybe, or it was a little bit longer.
About 5 days.
It was about 5 days.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And the town went to work. And it was amazing when you were here.
Yeah. I mean, it already looked way better than when I was here. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance. Sir, we start a lot of things with prayer.
Yep, in Virginia, of course.
And I think there's no better place to start. So,
All right, some technical difficulties there as we await that live shot to be picked back up. Sometimes, of course, that happens, especially in some of those rural areas. I mean, this is a rural part of the country, and as many know, unless you have something like Elon Musk's Starlink, which we've used here at the network, so many times when we're out there live, we would rely on that kind of technology to bring you that picture. Well, this specific situation is a pool feed that we do have access to here at the network. And what we're seeing is that obviously some sort of technical issue there. So as soon as we get that back up and running, we'll go back live there. So again, Robert, later today, President Trump in Doral, Florida for the GOP Leadership Conference. It's going to be great to see him speaking with members of the GOP.
And how they intend to lay out the MAGA agenda to get this done for the American people, because it's a thin majority that Speaker Johnson has to work with here, really at 219 members. And of course, a couple of members, going on to other positions, whether it's at least Stefanik with being the UN ambassador, or Michael Waltz also serving in the administration as well. So the thin majority to get so much done in 2 years, because we know that historically against President Trump, the other side of the aisle, especially in the House, 2 fake impeachments thrown at him. Of course, they were not upheld in the Senate. But this has just been the lawfare coming from the other side. So we really have 2 years to push this agenda through to make America great again.
Exactly. And at last check, it looks like the feed is down across all networks. So again, that's just something that we're looking forward to seeing come back there as the vice president visits the people of Damascus, Virginia. If you just remember, on Friday, for those of you that watched, we had all of that live coverage from Asheville, where President Trump visited, and then out to Los Angeles. and then over to Nevada for the rally. How awesome was that rally yesterday?
That was extraordinary. So
On
much
Saturday.
fun. Well, Saturday, yes,
Yeah.
it was really great to see President Trump, especially with the seal in front of him again, just speaking from that podium, having that bully pulpit of the American presidency. There's nothing like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and of course, Air Force One traveling all around to really help President Trump enact his agenda. And it was special to see President Trump landing at LAX as well. And we had some film of that from people sharing online, just saying, oh my goodness, Air Force One is back and President Trump is on board.
It is so great. I mean, we do love Trump Force One. We always will here at the network. How many times have we seen it in person, doing a flyby? Speaking of flyby, the Marine One helicopter. I was covering one back in the mainstream days, and I saw one of the rallies, and I saw President Trump fly in Marine One right over the crowd. Oh, it was great. Music was playing. It was just an awesome moment. He lands the helicopter. So maybe we'll see that another time in this administration. But wonderful to see Air Force One. We saw Air Force Two today with the Vice President. And as soon as that live Vantage Point comes back, we'll be going back to Virginia.
There's nothing quite like it, Matthew. I had the privilege of watching Marine One pick up President Trump back in 2019 at the White House, and that was the second time Robert Mueller testified on the Russia hoax. And he was out there with the media for about 1 hour. And of course, the Marines stand at attention waiting for their commander-in-chief, and it's a sight to see. And then also, Megan Kohler and I, when the inauguration happened last week, saw then Special Air Mission 46 for the former President, Joe Biden, take him and Mrs. Biden from the east side of the Capitol as the Trump said goodbye along with the Vances. And we saw the helicopter go right over our heads, and you just see the brilliance of American constitutional republic and this democracy for which it stands. It's only because of us, we the people, that set the agenda and set the mandate, and thank God, as you said back on election night, that we now have a president who believes in these principles.
Exactly. You know, standing with we the people, standing with the Constitution of our great land. And what we do here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, if a live feed doesn't work, we just roll with the punches. You know, sometimes that's part of the name of the game, even in life, right? You know, President Trump saying always to keep going, to never quit, and always, you know, keep that optimism. And
right.
that's what you got to do. And looking forward to seeing the Vice President in Virginia. And then, of course, later, President Trump in Florida. Let's talk about later in the week. For those of you just joining us, a lot of Senate confirmation hearings coming up. Everybody from Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Kelly Loeffler as well.
An extraordinary cabinet that President Trump has put together, because these are people who don't need another job on their resume. They are subject matter experts. They are America first. They come from such diverse backgrounds, and perhaps going to be one of the most effective cabinets in all of human history. And why is that? It's because in certain situations, like Linda McMahon, their goal is to end the Department of Education, to bring it back to the states, to be truly the Federalist administration and the 10th Amendment administration, to save this country from a big bloated government bureaucracy in our federal city of Washington. So they have a mandate from the American people to get this done, and President Trump is executing it at all levels.
He is nonstop. That's that historic speed that we've been seeing with the president, with all the executive orders, one after the other, seeing that he may be signing more EOs today. That would have to be in Florida, since he's going to be there at 5 o'clock Eastern. Maybe he will sign them tonight at the White House. And if that's the case, man, you and I will be working.
Right, it's no question about it. We're excited to be here for unbridled coverage of everything President Trump and the 47th Commander-in-Chief. It's really an exciting time, along with the 50th Vice President, his running mate, JD Vance, and the 119th Congress. We will give you everything national news with great interviews. We truly are a live desk here at Right Side Broadcasting, ready to give you everything from the friendliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. And it truly is a friendly village with common sense people. And isn't it great, Matthew, to now live? I mean, we're from the north, as you know, the viewers, but now we live in common sense, pretty much deep red America, and thank you God for that. I mean, it's all about common sense down here in Bama, and we're happy to broadcast live from somewhere that people say yes sir, no ma'am, and really have that unbridled American optimism every single day with the backdrop of a great university, the #1 basketball team in America.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to see that. A big win against Tennessee the other day, but we love Tennessee as well, the Volunteer State, having lived there and worked there myself, and I have family that live there right now in Chattanooga, so hello if you're watching. But it's a great part of the earth, and it's nice to see people wave and smile, even if you're walking the dog or out with the family or driving, whatever. And obviously a lot of places like that in pockets of the country, whether you're in the north, northeast, even all the way out, west coast, wherever, it's just nice to have nice people around, in a place like, well, New York City, there are a lot of great people there, but it's tough because it's such a hustle bustle thing. Mm-hmm. It's that rat race, which, okay, but whatever. I mean, I've done it before. I've lived in New York, and I was part of that, and had an internship in D.C. and rode the metro and all that. But regardless of where you're watching us from, we love this country. And there's beautiful spots everywhere, a lot of great things to see out there as we await the live feed to pick up with the Vice President JD Vance. Also, possibly, there may be an interview that I could toss to here that I did with JD Vance well before he was even picked as the vice presidential nominee by President Trump. This takes us back to East Palestine, Ohio, when he and the 45th president at the time, President Trump, stopped in and visited the people in East Palestine, and everybody was just so ecstatic that happened, but also to show that, hey, they're there, just like North Carolina the other day, just like Virginia today, just like LA, that they're there to help. It's not just, and by the way, it's not just to say, oh, they're doing a good job. No, how about when the actions happen? Like when the money gets there or when the aid gets there, that's when the actions speak louder than the words.
Exactly.
You could take a trip, but you still have to have this follow through. But that's what we're already seeing with this administration. And if you look at just the executive order of the southern border national emergency, the Marines already there at the border.
Right.
That's action speaking louder than words.
Exactly. And Matthew, what are your thoughts on that? Because you got to interview then Senator Vance. Do you think that moment, because he was with President Trump when that happened, they were there before Biden and Harris. I don't even recall then Vice President Harris being on the ground in East Palestine, and it took President Biden months to get there. Do you think that was the moment where President Trump said, this young senator just might be my number 2?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, that definitely helps. And when you look back at this video, we might be able to get it. Director, do you know if we're going to be able to show that? So they're working on that there. So we might be able to go to that here in a little bit as the live feed as we get ready for it. So they're working on that. Great crew here, by the way, behind the scenes at the network to be able to deal with all the live feeds, all the graphics, all the everything. There's a lot, but doing a great job as we are live at 12:24. But back to the Ohio situation when Vice President, before that he was just a senator out of Ohio, which still is quite the title to have.
It is.
But he was very supportive of President Trump even before he was the VP pick. So we may show you that interview that I did. It was just simply with my iPhone. I saw the Senator Vance just getting out of a suburban there, and I just talked to him, and we'll show you that here. It's on my Truth Social. It's way at the bottom though, so we're getting that loaded up for you as we await this live picture again from Damascus, Virginia. When they do the action, this is the action. They are there right now.
Right.
We saw President Trump, remember, in Valdosta, Georgia, back in just not too long ago. The actions are there, and then you see the aid and everything come right after that. And that's what we need to see as America First policies continue in our country.
Really to take the assessment of what's happening on the ground. It's important to make these trips. And of course, he was there with Reverend Franklin Graham and Kelly Loeffler, among other leaders. I think also several congressmen who were there, including Congressman Carter down in Georgia. So that's very important to do in order to know how the federal government can assist in this process. And I think that's been the problem with FEMA over these several years, is that somewhere in there, they're unable to truly assess the need for each and every American. That's why you saw, we'll cut a check for $750 to people in Western North Carolina. But why? It just seems like a one-size-fits-all when clearly they said, thanks but no thanks. This really won't even get us to the grocery store. So we need help right here, and the federal government flat out really ignored these people. And President Trump and Vice President JD Vance understand from their business background that you have to assess a situation by being there, getting a plan in place, and then executing.
Exactly. All right, it is about the bottom of the hour, 1:30 here on RSBN Live. Let's go to that interview from East Palestine, Ohio. We're bringing this up because, of course, it is much of the same in the sense of JD Vance, now in Virginia as the vice president. At this point, this interview from East Palestine, Ohio, this was before he was even picked as President Trump's running mate. Go ahead.
Showing up here, and Biden being in Ukraine, that kind of thing.
Well, look, it sends a terrible signal when the president can go to Ukraine, but he can't come to his own country's communities that are suffering. I think what President Trump did today was draw attention to East Palestine in a way that makes it harder for people to forget the residents here. That's the most important thing. We cannot leave this community behind, and we can't forget them.
So him saying he can't leave the community behind. So that's what the actions are speaking louder than the words for all these communities across our country when it comes to devastation. We see many things being done and to help the people of our country. So it's almost a shocking situation in a good way for the fact that what happened with the Biden administration, all the terrible things that were happening.
Right.
And now we're suddenly brought into from darkness to light, from lies to truth, in a matter of a week. So, as the saying goes, your head's spinning. Like it's a lot.
Oh, it is. So much of that is just this relief that has been brought to us, and that's something we really got on the ground post-election, speaking to people, especially during the inauguration. If you saw some of our live interviews, that people, regardless of the temperatures and the weather last week, which was very cold and sometimes rainy in our nation's capital, people were out there at 1 in the morning, the night before as well, camping out to see the ceremonies at the Capital One Arena and just to get the glitz and glam of all of Washington, because it was such a historical moment. And many people said our president was there for us. Now it's time for us to be here for our president. And so many people enjoying really a family affair, whether it was fathers and sons or extended family together to celebrate with neighbors and friends as well, this great country. And we ran into so many people from the UK and from Australia who wanted to take in the sights of sounds of a free America once again.
And that's what the people are seeing across the world that, have the technology to stream or live stream any of our coverage, but also just the news of what's happening in this nation. I mean, this is the leader of the free world, as President Trump is, but we also are the city on a hill with that light and that freedom. So what happens here really, really does have an effect on the entire globe. So we don't count that lightly here at the network. We realize that this is the cutting edge of what's happening in this 47th Commander-in-Chief, this administration. And we're going to bring you everything that we see happening at the network right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You're watching RSBN Live. It's the bottom of the hour. That's Robert McNeely. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Now, we were calling Robert Bobby for a while, but we said, you know what? We like the sound of Robert, too.
It's the legal name, the nickname, whatever you want to call me when I'm out in the field. I'm happy to respond to both. So
exactly.
It's been a pleasure to be with you here now since summer of last year, and then to join Matthew here full time in Auburn has been such an incredible blessing. And just to speak to your point, sir, about this is an incredible team that has been assembled, some of the best producers, directors, cameramen who are so dedicated to the craft and to this mission of making America great again through the liberty and the independence of a free press. This is the one medium that is actually mentioned in the Constitution, that to have a free constitutional republic, a free society, you must have a free press, not a state press. So we'll analyze it, we'll call balls and strikes pending what we see out there, but we'll also bring you all of this coverage of whether it's Vice President JD Vance in Damascus, Virginia today with Governor Glenn Youngkin, or overseas trips that President Trump is ready to take to settle the peace over in Ukraine and Russia. We're going to be there on the ground so you, the American people, can make that decision for yourself instead of the talking heads in the corporate elites who think that they're driving policy and driving force. And you have two people in charge who really know how to handle these different outlets. And I think no one does it better than President Trump and President Vance about communicating that mission to the American people.
And Vice President Vance, to your point there, I mean, that's the thing that we're seeing, is that this is not going to be a false narrative network in any stretch of the imagination. We are still the same, as I mentioned before, the same correspondents, hosts, and people behind the scenes, on camera, Christina Loren and others here at the network. We're the same ones that interviewed all of you at various events throughout the country. We are now being able to cover the president, of course, in D.C., and also tonight he'll be in Florida for an event. JD Vance as well, the vice president, in Virginia. Now, the live feed, working on it right now. I don't believe any network has the live feed of that because the pool camera went down for some reason. But we're going to keep it on here at the network. Speaking of that, President Trump on X, on the White House X page, which I'm going to go to here in just a second, had something that was pretty cool on there. And Dan Scavino Jr. also posted this message from the White House X page. So it says, no dream is too big, no challenge too great. Nothing we want for our future is beyond our reach. That, according to President Donald Trump. I'm going to say it again, why not? No dream is too big, no challenge too great. Nothing we want for our future is beyond our reach. And having, faith in God and doing the right things, all things are going to work out, regardless if a live feed goes down or not. It's going to be okay, because at the end of the day, we know that we want to bring you, again, the common sense and truth reporting here at the network. So it'd be great to get RSBN's Christina Loren on the line again. I mean, she joined us for some great coverage last week, and it was awesome to see all the executive orders that were being signed by the president at historic speed. Again, this is what this is about.
Right.
We're seeing historic speed right now, and it is actually turning the ship of our country, which was headed down off of the Niagara Falls, and has shifted over back to a land of the free.
No question about it, and Christina really gets the great interviews on the ground. As you saw in Vegas, what struck me was many people went to the inauguration or happened to be on vacation in Vegas and made that trip in order to see President Trump again. That's the loyalty, that's the connection they feel to their commander-in-chief, and we see him taking that time to meet with people afterwards, going to the craps table after the speech, and you think the man would tire or just lose some energy, but he doesn't. It's like he's nonstop, day in and day out, to serve the American people.
And it's always great to see that, and we'll continue to cover it here at RSBN. Colonial Metals Group, one of our sponsors, as we bring you live coverage, is selling a great product. It's gold. Who doesn't want gold, right? And on top of that, a tax-sheltered IRA, 401k, the financial peace of mind that you get through the value of gold is just off the charts. All you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com, get that information, and maybe take that step in that direction, especially if you have a little cushion in savings or in retirement. Like, what do you want to do with that money? Well, you can go to Colonial Metals Group for that information.
Such a great organization, and shield your savings now. Just click that QR code. You'll get that free 2025 gold guide, and again, no obligation. Just look at your options, see how you can diversify your assets, whether that be in properties or with your 401k and IRA relating to gold and silver, tangible metals. It just makes sense in these inflationary times and all the damage the Biden administration did, quite frankly, to the United States economy.
And today, as we pivot to other news right now, it's just seeing this on America First Works, but also this is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So remembering the 6 million lives lost at the hands of the Nazi regime. America will always be a force for good and will continue to combat tyranny and anti-Semitism. Holocaust Remembrance Day today, as it was 80 years ago that this took place. So that is a international event that's going on right now as we speak in Poland. It's 1:30 on the East Coast here, and Robert, that alone is something to how terrible of a situation that was.
Well, and I always think about Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders' story telling of a little girl who went over to Auschwitz and her father really struggling if he should have shared that on that trip with her. She was about 10 years old and finally asked her father, after touring everything while in tears, why didn't anyone speak up? Why didn't anyone say anything? Well, that little girl was Sarah Huckabee Sanders with her wonderful father, the new ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. And it was really something that it was hard for him to even explain in that time. But I think we've seen remnants of this since, not that anything can be compared, nor should it be compared to the atrocities of the Holocaust. But when you see groupthink, when you see globalist governments and the Marxist and fascist socialist entities that try to blame one person or a group of people and dehumanize them, you see what can happen as a result. And that's why it's so important to have a free and fair press and to point out where evils are happening in our government. That's why we will call these balls and strikes here in the United States, because we have to remain vigilant against those that would seek to divide us.
Freedom of religion, it's that Constitution we talk about a lot here at the network. So we're going to stay based and rooted and connected to, and we're going to embrace it. We have embraced it. I know as citizens of this country, we're not just two guys on TV type thing. We are citizens. We love this nation, and we're not reading from a teleprompter. We're speaking directly to you right now, and we're hoping to see this live feed that picks up in Virginia as we get ready, hopefully, to see the Vice President doing a bit of a tour there in Virginia. If we don't see that, maybe we'll be able to get a recording of it and still air it a little bit later. But what we will have later is Doral, Florida, where President Trump will be meeting with the GOP Leadership Conference. He may be signing some executive orders there as well, so we'll have all of that coverage. And it's a long week of coverage coming up because there are a lot of Senate confirmations happening when it comes to RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel. That's going to be quite awesome. That's going to be a lot of people are going to watch that one.
And it gives me relief too that now that Pete Hegseth is over that hump, it was a close vote, 50-50 tie. Of course, 3 Republicans, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins, going against the mandate and the MAGA agenda. But John Fetterman, the Democrat from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, coming along board MAGA and populist common sense, saying, I like Pete Hegseth, I like his background. He will bring that meritocracy back to the Pentagon. And with him over that hump, now getting the other officials into the national security apparatus, it's a new dawn, a new day, morning in America once again.
It is 100% as we're approaching 1:40 on the East Coast. So President Trump, the promises made, promises kept. Let's see which ones are kept. They've all been kept so far, and they're going to continue as we've seen in that first administration. President Trump said he would use the military to secure the border. The Pentagon is deploying troops to the border, and the Coast Guard is surging assets to the Gulf of America. So promises made, promises kept there. President Donald Trump said he would end the weaponization of government. He signed an executive order doing just that. President Trump said he would pardon the J6 hostages. He did. President Trump said he would end government censorship. On his first day in office, he signed an executive order restoring freedom of speech and ending government censorship. So these are wonderful things for humans, for humankind.
Right.
These are great things. Pro-life, human, America First policy that we're seeing happen. And on top of that, speaking of all of that, the 23 pro-lifers, activists, now pardoned as well. So many, many great things to see here by President Trump.
Well, and famous now as well, with billions of investments coming into the United States, whether that be from AI technologies or even the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will invest $600 billion into the United States in partnerships, in both national security interests for both nations as we move forward in this Trump era. And I mean, for so much of this to happen within 1 week is really rather extraordinary. And there's a 4-year term that's left here in order to get everything done, but a fast pace. And it's kind of that no-nonsense approach that President Trump is so aware of who he can surround himself with in order to get that agenda done for the American people. Whereas 8 years ago, he walked into a Washington, D.C. that was weaponized against him. And not to say that we have to be vigilant, trust and verify, but he knows who these key players are and who really went after them. And quite frankly, perhaps should be prosecuted, because we know with the Steele dossier and the Russia hoax, even Chuck Schumer said it himself, if you go up against the intelligence community in the United States, they have 6 ways from Sunday to come after you. And they tried to do that and derail President Trump all the way up to a potential assassination attempt. And how frightening was that? And we still have the Iranian guard who is trying to harm our commander-in-chief. And we've seen the anti-drone technology on the motorcade. But I am so much more comfortable now that he is in office, ready to defend the American people, because people will back down. For example, Colombia. We had 2 planes diverted from the nation that had illegal aliens, the worst, that were emptied from their prisons. And they said, we're not going to do that. And President Trump said, okay, fine. Here's a 25% tariff immediately. You keep it up for a week, we're going 50%. Sanctions on every one of your banks, and just went after that socialist government. Well, within 24 hours, they changed their tune. They said, we'll welcome them in. So we'll house the criminals.
Similar to what happened with Canada and Mexico. He was saying those 25% tariffs, and man, they were on the phone, and then to the point that Justin Trudeau made a trip to his southern border down to meet with President Trump, and has since stepped down. Justin Trudeau did, of course. So yeah, a lot going on there. 3 words, really, though: drain the swamp. Mm-hmm. That needs to happen.
That's the key. It's really we the people versus a globalist agenda, and the deep state seems to be dismantled, at least perhaps or gone now. Which, thank God that they have been taken out of government, but you still, again, have to be vigilant. And Marco Rubio, our new Secretary of State, was very clear with his department. We were elected and put into place with Donald Trump's mandate from the American people. If you don't have any interest of advancing peace through strength and the national security interests of the United States, then there's the door. It's that simple. Go do something else. 100%. And that's the best way to approach it.
Exactly. Team Trump on Truth Social saying Vice President Vance is on the ground in Virginia with Governor Youngkin. No American is forgotten about in the Trump-Vance administration. That's a fact. Also, that was from about 30 minutes ago, right here on the network, where we're showing the governor and the vice president meet together there. Obviously, the pull feed, for some reason, is not working, so I don't believe any network has any of this coverage from Virginia happening right now. But speaking of other states, in Florida, the president will be meeting with the GOP Leadership Conference. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for I was going to say staying up with us. Well, it's only 1:43. I think because of the amount of hours we worked last week, which was great because the coverage was just unbelievable,
Well, I think we've seen here too, for any of those who were fortunate to view, and thank you for viewing, 6 million viewers on the inauguration celebration the day of, and we're just grateful for all of that. And our outstanding COO posting on True Social that people are moving away from certain networks and turning to the streaming services. And President Trump took that victory lap of the most watched inauguration in American history, nearly doubling that of President Reagan and his historic inaugurations as well. And President Trump and Reagan, so much in common between the Gipper, the great communicator, and the people's president, not only in policies of peace through strength and deregulation and strong national defense, but also swearing in their second terms within that beautiful Capitol Rotunda.
Exactly. Yesterday, the vice president said on X, "We live in the greatest country in the world. When disaster strikes, Americans ought to expect more out of their federal government." So, being in Damascus, Virginia, he's checking on the cleanup there from Hurricane Helene, and he says we'll continue to do so till they're fully recovered. Of course, Damascus, just east of Bristol, 115 miles north of Asheville, where President Trump was on Friday. And then, of course, he went out to Los Angeles and then to Nevada for that great rally. So Will there be any more rallies? That's the question. We'd love to see some more here on the network. I was watching the speech, of course, on Saturday. President Trump's demeanor, his nonverbal communication, his wit, his comedy, it was off the charts that day. I mean, he was just funny. And the people there, maybe because it was a more intimate crowd, I mean, obviously, he could have packed out the Raiders football stadium if he wanted to, but it was in a smaller venue. The intimacy of it, you could really hear the people laughing and just carrying on.
It's a special moment for people to really engage the people that are right at the top. And we know that presidents in the past have left that door wide open, like Abraham Lincoln. You could actually come to, this is before the West Wing, of course, right to the main corridor, his office, of course, the study upstairs by the Lincoln bedroom where he signed the Gettysburg Address. But if you're looking at the other side, on this north side here, you could really walk right up through that front door, and the president's secretary was there. And I have a few words to share with Mr. Lincoln. Of course, you can't do that now for security purposes, but President Trump makes himself so available to people. He wants to hear their stories. We saw this in North Carolina. We saw this in California. And then again, his willingness and ability to communicate through the press, and that's the dirty secret for a lot of those in the press corps who claim to not like this president nor his agenda. Well, they sure like the coverage and the ratings that they get because President Trump will talk to them all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the ratings on the other networks, but again, I'm starting to just shift away from even talking about them as much. It's easy to talk about.
Right.
Because we know it's fake news, we know it's a false agenda, we know they've been lying to us for years, So, but as we move on, though, we want to just, cover and just do our job of covering what the heck is going on out there. So, looking forward again to going to Virginia to see the vice president, as long as the live pool feed gets back up and running. If it doesn't, we do have some footage from earlier that is, I believe, I've seen it already on Truth Social. So we also saw Air Force 2 as well. And then what we'll be doing here shortly, depending on the directive, is we'll be closing out this live stream, but we'll be starting up another one for when President Trump will be speaking in Doral, Florida at his Trump National Golf Club there while he meets with the GOP Leadership Conference. So that a bit later today, as it's about 1:47, good number, 47 Eastern Time. Let's go to one of our sponsors. Producer, which sponsor would you like? All right, let's go to mybrightcore.com. Mybrightcore.com. If you buy 2 of these Kimchi 1 products, you get 1 free. Kimchi's great stuff. I mean, I interviewed Kim Bright, the owner there. She says it's a probiotic that really helps with gut health, really just helps out your whole system. So not a bad thing to have, a great thing to have, especially for that Make America Healthy Again.
This is a wonderful product made in the USA, and everything starts in the gut. So your productivity throughout the day, what you're trying to accomplish in your workplace, or even spending that quality time with family and friends, this beautiful Kimchi 1 from Brightcore will make that difference. Buy 2, get 1 free now. Visit mybrightcore.com/RSBN or call the number on your screen, 888-722-0936. That's mybrightcore.com/RSBN, 888-722-0936. Yeah, that health starts right in your gut. So true.
So mybrightcore.com/RSBN. Looking live at the White House right now at 1:49 Eastern. We are live here at RSBN Live, and we'll see if that Virginia feed comes through, but also, again, President Trump later today. Later this week, again, we will have the coverage, especially of the Kash Patel hearing. I know that happening on Thursday, so we'll be seeing that happen. And then on top of that, any other developments, whether there's a press briefing in the White House press briefing room, Carolyn Leavitt leading that way as the press secretary, or if there's another Oval Office executive order signing or whatever's happening. We know President Trump will be meeting with various world leaders over the course of the administration. We'll be seeing that as well. And also the actions. Again, we're seeing these videos of ICE detaining and arresting across the country. And then on top of that, the southern border getting cleaned up. So I'm looking forward to the day of seeing the steel and all of the wall being built. I just want to see the video, or I don't care. I want to be there in person. I just want to see it happen.
Right. It's an extraordinary time for the country to have this renaissance. It's a revival that's taking place, and really it was a bipartisan coalition that saved America peacefully and patriotically. So many revolutions throughout history demanded that shots be fired. This did not. This was by the ballot box. This is what the founders envisioned: peace through strength, and making a say and a statement in your own government by making a vote. And we really saw their vision come to terms with President Trump in his third attempt at the White House, and a historic presidency, truly a citizen servant leader that did not have to do this. And he said too, look, if everything was fair, back in 2020, probably would have just walked away, because I laid down the mantle on how to lead this country in such a prosperous way. But he said I had to return. I had no choice. And he is the chosen one. As he mentioned to the press, somebody had to do it as he looked up to heaven. I am the chosen one. And it's, again, that comedy, that truth in comedy that he brings across to make those statements.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to put Robert on the spot here. Speaking of comedy, Bobby, go ahead. Just a little bit of a Trump impersonation with what you just said there, because you kind of did it, though. You said, I'm the chosen one. I can't do it. You can do it.
I'm the chosen one. There you go. That's all I'll do today, because President Trump, it is, though. It's that humor. It's that wanting to connect with people that makes him truly different than most and approachable. We even see with congressmen too. It's, I've reached this status. I've reached this title. Please call me by it. Remember Barbara Boxer back in the day from California, lecturing a great general from the dais, saying, please call me Senator, because I've earned that. While he was calling her ma'am, actually being very polite to her. I need to be called Senator every sentence out of your mouth, because I worked hard for that title. Yeah. President Trump's not like that.
No,
he's an every man's man.
Yeah.
And I can say it from just personal time with him. He's very approachable. It's as if he's known you forever, and that you've been old friends from way back in college. We had a great conversation really on policy, and so focused on that back in Aurora, Colorado, before one of the rallies. And I was just flabbergasted and floored by the stories I had heard before, because here's an American icon. I mean, you have a person who was in movies, was in television, was adored by far left celebrities until he got onto the political scene. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't popular with them because, and we'll see as things unfold here with our Department of Justice, think there's some stuff that people have been involved in that they shouldn't have been involved in. And now they're nervous because he's delivered for the American people.
Speaking of the DOJ, John Solomon reporting on Truth Social here. Senior DOJ career official resigns after Trump administration reassigns him. So we've seen that even with the IRS, the head of the IRS, he resigned. I mean, they saw that the light and the truth was coming. It was the Trump train, and the Trump train is in Washington, D.C., and will stay there for the next 4 years, and only great things can come out of that. Now, let's pause for a second. We're not just, only, go Trump and that's it. We want to see him and the team fulfill all of the promises that he has given to the American people. So, again, we are for the truth and common sense. As we improve as people in our lives too, like we're just all in this thing together, but we want to see that first. And that's what President Trump is already doing. He's already working on all those things. So it's just great to see. As it's live right now at 1:54, getting ready for the top of the hour. And Bobby, somebody just said on Truth Social, Matt and Bobby, you are walking on water, holding the space on Damascus, Virginia feed. We love you, RSBN, tap dancing and rolling with it. So thank you to MAGA, so it's Abigail, so MAGA Abigail, 45 Trump 47. Thanks for the shout out there. As you notice what we're doing here, but it's okay, because we are obviously with you guys and supportive of we the people. And to your point about the whole thing of them saying, call me Senator and that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, we the people, we're the ones that run this thing. It's about of, by, and for the people. And that's what President Trump and Vice President Vance understand. And that's why we were like, yeah, we want that guy.
And this has been the question, Matthew, I think in the last, really since President Reagan, there's been this argument and debate whether or not we have an imperial presidency or what's happening in America where it's gone post-constitutional. Of course, the great Mark Levin covers this a lot on his show, whether that be radio or on Sunday night. But and you've seen from his writings as well. I would argue that it's not so much who's there for 4 to 8 years, it's more of the legislative branch who has no term limits. Now, there's arguments to be had there, but if you look at the states that really are well run and function well, there are some form of term limits within those state legislatures, or even, hey, you can do it to this point, but then you have to leave, or even the salary base of some of these state legislators that they it's truly part-time. They're not being compensated for a full-time position. And those states where they are compensated for full-time work for a part-time job, you actually see less freedoms. And so that's something I think that needs to be addressed by our Congress, because the people there 40, 50, going on almost 6 decades, what is their goal? What is their mission? They get warped by being part of the swamp, and they really stop fighting for the people at home, but rather for themselves.
And that's what we've been seeing over the years, and that's why it's great to have somebody as an outsider, the real deal kind of person that's genuine and connecting with the people. So we've seen that time and time again. That's why he's had the, the fame from 2015 all the way through to 2025 and beyond. So
exactly,
looking forward to seeing him here in Florida a little bit later. Also, the feed producer, could you give us an update on a possible feed there in Virginia? Do we see anything? Okay, so it looks like we may have had something that turned just back on, the producer's saying, so we may be going to that here shortly. As it is 1:56 Eastern, top of the hour. Thanks for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, those of you that watched Robert hold down the fort on Saturday for the Nevada coverage, that was quite awesome to watch that coverage with RSBN's Christina Loren. I guess she just had to get on a jet plane and go to Nevada the other day.
Oh, she is extraordinary. She's one of our favorites here at Right Side Broadcasting. Yeah, literally just getting on that jumbo jet, just as President Trump would, and went out west for really incredible coverage and some great interviews by the classy Christina Loren. And the temperature seemed to be a little bit warmer out there in the Vegas desert, but also they were indoors in that intimate setting. But how great was it, Matthew, to see the seal of the president again, the presidential flag, the American flag, and no tax on tips, promises made, promises kept, and this president delivering on this just a week back into office.
It's great to see, and it's great to see Air Force One, Air Force Two with the vice president today. No Air Force Three, but... Oh, speaking of 3, let me just say it real quick. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so we both like the Anchorman movie, of course. Who doesn't? There has to be an Anchorman 3. Please, make it happen, Will Ferrell. Your thoughts?
Steve Carell, some of those others. Please get on that quickly, because, it's something that we'll quote off air, from time, every time and again, because, again, we like to laugh, and it adds years to your lives.
Yeah.
It really does. They say roughly 20 years to your life if you're laughing regularly. So, go out there and laugh and have a good time with it, because there is so much to smile about. We are now in a golden era, and you see the sun shining on the land of Washington, D.C., that beautiful district envisioned by our founders to be a federal city, not an additional state, not intended to have 2 senators, as some of the Democrats want to do, to perhaps, of course, pack the United States Senate, but rather to have that federal city for our nation's leaders to do that business. And it's a wonderful place if you have not visited. I was shocked, too, that my sister-in-law has not been. And I've been countless times for conferences, and usually when I'm going, it's more of that the West Wing visits, in the sense that sometimes it is the West Wing, and I wasn't invited in the last 4 years of the Biden administration, but it's more of those policy conferences. It's nice just to go there, admire our monuments, and even driving after the Hispanic Ball and after Inauguration Day, seeing all those monuments lit up. It's really a testimony to the great vision that God had for this blessed land of America.
Bobby and I have actually been to the White House before in our own right, in different areas for mine, what was a news internship, and then for various political events there. So it's pretty awesome to say that, but we're coming from some experience, and we just love to share that with you as we see what's happening out there in our country. All right, we'll be right back on RSBN Live.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra My Pillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic My Pillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use My Pillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size My Pillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
White X. Okay. Here we are. Great. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be back in Damascus. I visited during the campaign trail, and the governor was kind enough to show me around, not just last time, but this time as well. As you all know, I love the Appalachian region of our country, especially this particular part. It's beautiful, the people are kind and friendly, and they've got a great community here, but obviously got slammed very hard by the hurricane, and I think, unfortunately, while the people have done an incredible job at rebuilding this community, they have not had a federal government that's really been on their side. I've heard so many stories just in the last hour that I've been on the ground of federal agencies that have not developed and deployed the resources necessary, of federal bureaucrats that have been a barrier as opposed to a facilitator of some of the federal resources. And I think the country has decided collectively that we want to help the regions of our country that were devastated by this flood. So why are the bureaucrats not doing the American people's will and frankly holding up some of the aid here? I want to hear from the governor here in a second, but let me just say one last thing. I've been the Vice President of the United States for all of 7 days. This is, I think, my 7th day on the job, and this is an incredible place to have my first official trip. I heard so many good stories of good people helping their neighbors rebuild, of a woman at a church helping an elderly woman clean off photographs that were destroyed by or at least damaged by the flood, of people who have volunteered their time, have come out of retirement, volunteered and donated their money to help people rebuild or fix houses. This is just an incredible place with incredible people, and I'm honored to be the vice president of a country that's as kind and generous as the people here in Damascus. So we're going to try to make sure the federal government does right by them, and I'm going to go back to Washington with that message and that directive from the people here on the ground in Damascus. It's great to be here, and let me just say one final thing. They are very, very, I think, blessed to have one hell of a governor in Glenn Youngkin. Thank you, Governor.
Bless you, sir.
Yeah.
Bless you, sir. First of all, welcome to Virginia, and we're just so honored to have you here. And Mr. Vice President, thank you for keeping your word.
Yep.
When you were here in October, right after this devastating hurricane, you said you'd be back. And we are so honored that this is your first official visit. And so thank you. The words that the Vice President shared are so accurate. This community withstood a devastating storm. Where we are standing was literally deep, deep, deep with water, with mud. Businesses were washed away, houses were washed away, and the community has responded. And we find ourselves now looking back in awe of the heroes that's had over 100 swiftwater rescues that saved lives, of the communities that came together and said, we're going to rebuild together. But what we also see is the federal government has really ground to a halt in getting the resources to us. There was a very large CR passed with a lot of disaster funding in it, and that money needs to flow. And what I so appreciate is the Vice President and the President understand that the funds are available, but the funds have to get to the people to use them. And so we are ready. We are already rebuilding homes. We are already rebuilding businesses. We are ready to work as your prototype project on how to do this in an accelerated way. And I think everybody here is encouraged to hear the Vice President's words that we're going to go to work together in order to streamline these processes, to get the bureaucracy and the red tape out of the way so that Virginians and Tennesseans and North Carolinians and South Carolinians and Georgians and the folks in Florida can get the resources that we need. And particularly as we see the devastating fires in California, there's another process there to be had. So, Mr. Vice President, I cannot tell you what it means to this community, to Southwest Virginia, to Virginia as a whole, for you to be here and to work with us to make sure that when we are rebuilding in a way that everybody in the nation can say, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it.
Great. We'll take a few questions, guys. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President, one of the things that I've heard from people that have been affected by Helene is they knew that there was a potential of maybe a flood, not to this magnitude, but they couldn't afford flood insurance even if they wanted to.
Sure.
Is there anything that your administration is doing to maybe lower some of those insurance costs?
Well, first of all, as the governor said, the most important thing that we're doing is trying to pick up and fill the gap where the insurance isn't necessarily available. And there's been about $4 billion that been earmarked for the state of Virginia. Only about $47 million has actually been delivered or even promised to be delivered to the state of Virginia. So really what we're going to have to do, where there are major gaps in flood insurance, is to ensure that the people's government is actually helping people rebuild and recover after these terrible floods actually happen. Yes, there are things that we can do to make flood insurance more available. I think there's some regulatory changes that we can engage in, but the most important immediate thing that people here need is help recovering, help rebuilding, and that's what we're going to do. The basic thrust of Donald Trump's administration, whether it's defense policy to helping people in Damascus, is we're putting people over bureaucrats. The bureaucracy has for too long stood in the way of the people's business. That's going to stop, and we're going to fight to make sure it stops every single day.
Do you have a timeline of when we might be able to see some of that federal response, Governor, even some of the state response? There's a home around the corner that has been split in half. This gentleman said that his mother, I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures, he said his mother has had insurance, had flood insurance, but the problem was she couldn't get any federal insurance, and he said that she's getting run through all this rigmarole, and he's just looking for an answer. What could you possibly provide for him?
Look, as soon as possible, right? We need to get back to Washington. We need to figure out what the holdup is and actually power through that holdup for people. Every single day after today is too long. We recognize these things don't always happen as quickly as they can, but the big difference now compared to a week ago is that people actually have an administration that's going to help them power through that bureaucracy. We're going to fight for them every single day. We're going to try to get that money as soon as physically possible, because that's what's necessary to help people rebuild.
And I can tell you that we heard from business leaders today that even in the last week, they've seen more movement than they had seen before. And so this is the opportunity for us to, yes, cut through red tape, cut through bureaucracy. At the state level, I have a $127 million budget amendment in to supplement what has already been at least appropriated by the federal government. Now it needs to come out. And this is a sprint, because as the vice president said, folks can't wait. They've been waiting for 4 months since this storm, and they don't need to wait another day.
Absolutely. Anybody over here?
Yes. In 7 days of being in office, you have been to 2/3 of all of this devastation. And I want to ask you about East Tennessee being part of the funding to help people. I know a lot of people are appreciative, and we want to know if East Tennessee is going to be a part of that, and how this is going to energize, how you're going to energize the communities who have been great in helping each other.
Yes, ma'am. So I actually met with a congresswoman from East Tennessee this morning, actually, when we landed. Obviously, we landed actually in Tennessee and then drove here to Virginia. Look, we recognize that while most of the attention from Helene is focused on North Carolina in particular, and to be clear, there's a lot of devastation in North Carolina, there's also a lot of devastation here in Virginia and also in East Tennessee. So our promise and our focus is going to be on leaving no American behind. That includes those in Tennessee and certainly here in Damascus.
Mr. President, can you preview at all what some of the specific changes you'd like to see with regard to FEMA's response? And does that include possibly eliminating the agency as the president has suggested?
Well, so first of all, it's not just FEMA, right? There's Housing and Urban Development, there's the Department of Agriculture. There's a lot of different agencies that are coordinating a response to this particular problem. And a couple of things that particularly seem to matter the most to the people of Damascus is, one, this incredible bike trail and hiking trail that runs along these mountains is a major source of economic opportunity and economic development, right? People come in, they stay in Airbnbs, they stay in bed and breakfast, they go to the coffee shops, they go to the restaurants. But unfortunately, the part of that trail that is managed and monitored by the federal government has been way too slow to actually start that rebuilding process. That's something that we want to focus on immediately. I think a second big issue is, and the governor knows these numbers better than I do, but I believe the maximum you can get from FEMA for home rebuilding is about $42,000, right? The average amount of damage, as I heard today, is about $130,000, right? So that's a massive, $80,000, $90,000 shortfall that we need to make sure that other parts of the federal government are fixing. Now, to be clear, the continuing resolution that was passed just a few weeks ago actually does have the resources to fill that gap, but only if the bureaucrats get out of the way and actually make sure that people get the money that they're entitled to, that the American people have decided that we want to contribute and we want to fund this incredible redevelopment, but it's got to happen quicker than it's been happening with the bureaucracy in Washington.
Time for one more question, guys. One more.
Mr.
some people were complaining about some of the red tape they had to get through to get trailers, or the hotel vouchers. They were about to end in January when there was a snowstorm. What do you guys make of some of that disorganization, and what are some specific ways you could streamline that process and just make the recovery process more efficient?
Well, unfortunately, it's just a perfect example of the bureaucratic inadequacy of the last administration and why we need to do better in this country. You know, the thing that I heard most when I was in Western North Carolina before the inauguration, but it was after the election, is that there are people who wanted to put trailers or other temporary housing in particular areas of Western North Carolina, but they couldn't because FEMA had designated these particular areas to be ineligible for the type of assistance that would allow people to put that temporary housing in the first place. That's another example of the sort of thing that's broken about the federal response. And it's actually, you know, when you have such great governors like Glenn Youngkin, and you talk to people, and it's like the local government's working, the state government is working as hard as it can, the local communities and the nonprofits and the churches are working at breakneck speed, and yet you have the federal government out there, the biggest institution with the most money that's not doing its job. It just drives home how much better we can do. And I think one of the takeaways of just my time the last week being the people's vice president is they should have higher expectations for their federal government. I talk to so many people who will say, in effect, well, it's the federal government, oh, the bureaucracy, oh, the red tape. No. The bureaucracy and the red tape is not an excuse for the government to not do its job. We're not going to be perfect. We never will be. Government is as fallible as the people who run it, but we can do a heck of a lot better than we have over the last few years, and that is something that President Trump and I are committed to doing. And let me just leave you with one final thought. I know that a lot of the people watching in the local news, look, this is a part of our country, Appalachian, Virginia, that has been ignored and left behind for decades, for generations in this country. Again, we're never going to be perfect, but I promise you that this administration will not forget you. We love you, we're rooting for you, and we want to be part of this incredible recovery here in Southwest Virginia. God bless you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Thank you.
Everybody in the press pool, we gotta get you guys in the vans quickly.
Local press, please make your way to the sidewalk.
All right, some great words there by the Vice President. Speaking specifically, if you were watching our coverage, we talked about hyper-local. That's what some of the coverage is. It's a hyper-local situation or story. And he touched that nerve there. He said, if somebody's watching here on local news, like, we are here with you guys. And that's what's awesome. We have somebody that's a vice president of the entire country, but he focuses in for the people. Like, literally, what do you guys need, or what's the problem here? And sometimes you can have other people tell you from afar, if he was still at the White House, today, but he had to see it with his own eyes.
An extraordinary public servant. And JD Vance, you could clearly see how Governor Glenn Youngkin, very appreciative of the federal government's willingness to assist, and saying frankly, before they just were absent. So we're going to have a situation here where either FEMA will be rebranded or it will be removed because it's not doing its job. That's become very clear. And that's why it's so important if you can get to Appalachia, as the Vice President spoke of. It's so beautiful, especially the summertime and in the fall months. Go and spend your tourism dollars to bring back the businesses to West Virginia and Western Virginia as well, because we now know those are two separate states, but Western North Carolina as well. These places thrive on your tourist dollars, and especially if you're a hiker, you will see views of the country that are unlike anywhere else in really the entire world.
Definitely. I've never been to Asheville. I'd still like to get up there. I know it's been devastated from the hurricane, but still, to put that money into a beautiful place on this earth in Asheville, North Carolina. We want to thank you guys so much for streaming in of our first part of coverage here on RSBN Live. We will be back in just about an hour from now at 3:30 Eastern. We'll be going to Doral, Florida. We'll be hearing from the Commander-in-Chief himself as he meets with the GOP conference leadership there, the GOP leadership conference, and we'll see if he signs any executive orders from Florida. That'll be quite interesting at the Trump Doral, so we'll see. This broadcast brought to you by Colonial Metals Group. We want to thank them so much, as all you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com for more information. And Bobby, also Tax Network USA.
An extraordinary group of people, tnusa.com/RSBN. Make sure you call 800-357-1415 as April 15th is right around the corner. Don't settle and fight back against the IRS.
And speaking of right around the corner, Valentine's Day for Angel Paste, angelpaste.com. You can use your RSBN code for 10% off that product right there out of Spring, Texas, hiring military veterans, and a great product. So angelpaste.com. Up next, Brightcore.
Oh, we love Brightcore, the Kimchi one, made in the USA. All health starts right in the gut. So buy two, get one free, mybrightcore.com/RSBN. Call that number there, 888-722-0936. Receive up to 50% off. This is a great product.
Exactly. Let's go from My Brightcore to MyPillow. MyPillow.com/RSBN. A lot of great products on there. More than 2,000 products on MyPillow.com. It was awesome to see Mike Lindell interviewed by our own RSBN host, Christina Loren, just the other day over the inauguration. And of course, you could celebrate a number of victories by President Trump and the team by purchasing some MyPillow products. Also, indirectly helps us here at the network as well. Use that promo code RSBN for up to 80% off. Speaking of helping us here to network, if you'd like, RSBN Donate, all you got to do is text RSBN to 801-801. So it's RSBN to 801-801. We also have that newsletter.
We appreciate all of your financial support as we are independent journalists, hosts, and correspondents focused on bringing you the truth and everything that your federal government is doing, perhaps in your neck of the woods. And we know with President Trump and Vice President JD Vance, they are unafraid to get their boots dirty in the mud and get everything solved for the American people. So the way we do that is with great sponsors and viewers like you at home to like, share, and subscribe, or go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter, and we'll give you those updates with written stories as well that I'm sure you'll enjoy reading.
For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, for the great Robert McNeely, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you at 3:30 Eastern Time as we get ready to see President Trump today on Monday, January 27th, 2025.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen-size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.